Good evening, Canby. I'm going to open the work session for July 16th. We are going to do a presentation on the housing production strategy, and I believe that's going to be Mr. Hardy and Ms. Emma. I'm not going to attempt the last name.
Good evening, Council President Hensley, council members, and mayor. Tonight, I'm just going to give a real brief overview. Emma's going to lead the presentation tonight. Although there are a lot of slides, we're going to get through those quickly. This is a bit of a recast of what we've seen before. We're trying to also inform on what we've done to date and also what three new strategies that are also proposed, given the stakeholder comments and also comments we received fairly late from Department of Land Conservation and Development. Many jurisdictions are going through the same process that we're going through. It's a pretty detailed review process. We just received the information on Happy Valley's comments for their housing production strategy. It was a 13-page letter of conditional approval. So there's a lot of nuances to this. With that, I just wanted to point out tonight we're going to be focusing on entry-level housing. We'll also be focusing on those strategies that you previously saw that we've already implemented, that we've taken action on. And then the ones that would be left would be going forward as part of the housing production strategy. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Emma.
And before you get started, Emma, just for efficiencies, if you have questions for them, instead of interrupting the production, let's just write them down and then we can do them at the end. Thank you. Go ahead, Emma. Thank you.
Good evening, all. So thank you, Council President Hensley. As you mentioned, I'll try and be quick here. So you may have some questions because I'm going to breeze through the presentation a little bit so we have time to chat since we only have an hour tonight. I also wanted to mention that we have Jody from BEH who has been helping us out with the HPS specifically online as well. So we may cue in Jody at some points as well. So we are here to discuss the housing production strategy tonight. You all have seen.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
The clicky don't click.
There we go. So you all have seen the drafts of the housing production strategy already. It has been a bit of a minute, so I'm going to give a brief refresher. This here is bigger brush is the sequential UGB process that we are currently working on. This shows you what's in progress and what has been completed. So the forecast completed by PSU, we received that several years ago. The housing needs analysis was completed last year. That is complete. So I will go over briefly those two and then work on the next sections. So a reminder of our findings from the 2023 housing needs analysis was that we do need more housing in Canby. We need 2,286,000 new dwelling units. In addition to those new dwelling units needed, we need about 500 low to moderate income housing units. And within those, there's about a split within 50% and under and 30% under median family income. You'll hear me say median family income a lot in this presentation. It's also synonymous with average median income. That is the metrics used to determine affordability for housing and primarily dictated by HUD's standards. And so the H&A revealed that overall we need more housing and we need a mix of housing, mostly single family, but also smaller dwelling units and rentals to provide more options for more peoples at different phases of life and different price points. So the housing needs analysis, you can see here that in 2022, the median home price in Canby was $560,000. That is equal to a average income of about $100,000. Over 29% of households in Canby spend over 50% of their income on rent. Per HUD standards, that means they are severely rent burdened. That 29% increased recently from only 17% in 2019. So that took quite a jump in the last several years. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So I've been mentioning HUD and their standards here. So this gives you the metrics that exist today for 2025. The median income, we are lumped in with the Portland Metro because we're in Clackamas County, so that MFI is 124,000. So if you're a family of four, 30% MFI is 37,000, 80% MFI is 99,000 about. So that was just a brief synopsis of the H&A findings. So the housing production strategy, as Don mentioned, we had the housing production strategy is a requirement from the state. It's a required study to evaluate how can we produce more housing and more range of housing and more affordable options for housing. And we got fairly far and had our consultants draft the report. And then back in October, when we were ready to put into motion adoption hearings, we got some pretty significant comments from DLCD that made us revisit this. And so that is why we are here in front of you today to discuss and the additions that we've proposed based on the comments from DLCD. And I'll just mention, as you can see here, the housing efficiency measures are considered the next step, but those code updates have already been approved, I think just recently last year, and you all were a part of the approval process for those. So what is the housing production strategy? It's a framework to promote the development of needed housing that's defined by the state. So the purpose is to identify tools, actions, and policies to promote affordability. So it's to bring a suite of options of ways that we can address housing. It is intended to be, these strategies are intended to be more high level, and so not say, we're going to have this strategy that and all the implementation steps planned out for that strategy. Is to say, we intend to do this strategy in this year, and at that year you would figure out exactly the parameters of a program, something like that. So the last version of the HPS had 12 strategies before we received comments from DLCD. We now have 3 new strategies that I will go into in just a moment. Strategy implementation was 5 to 8 years. That was when we started this process. It's really more 3 to 8 or 3 to 6 years now. And it can ebb and flow over the time that it's being reviewed and in progress by both us and the state. And we'd like to note, that DLCD recognizes, we are a unique community with our unique circumstances, and, want to collaborate on ways that we can best achieve the objectives of the HPS. So our comments that we received from DLCD back in October were that we needed to focus more on lower income households in Canby. So these are, like Don mentioned, these entry-level housing. Specifically, DLCD really consider these 0 to 60% MFI. And so they asked us to look more into commitments that we could provide to meet that low income 0 to 60% MFI strategies. Given the amount of affordability that's needed for those, it is naturally a financial strategy that's involved in asking for, us to address this level of affordability. So Dawn and I both went back to the drawing board on our HPS on what we could add from what we've already done, as well as look at other cities and see what other folks have done. Some cities are already further along in the process of stuff, so we could see what they've proposed, what DLCD has approved. So I did a little bit of a comparison to some somewhat comparable cities based on what was available at the time to see, how these strategies are broad, so it's hard to distill them into numbers and do direct comparisons, but as best as possible, these are the comparisons that I was able to draw. So of those cities listed, their strategies that address this 0 to 60% MFI, their average was 11.6 strategies. Not including the strategies we are proposing today, we only have 4 strategies currently in our report. Financially backed strategies, the average of the case studies was 5, and we only have 1 strategy right now. So we took that into consideration, as well as seeing what strategies they proposed that maybe we felt would be appropriate for Canby. And we also considered input from the stakeholders. That was the process that was done through the HPS. And so the input we received from housing producers, you can see here, is there's lack of incentive and guidance for affordable housing, as well as an overarching, there's barriers, regulatory barriers to housing as well. And then from consumers, there was desire for intergenerational housing, housing equity, senior housing were top priorities. Rental housing rates are too high. and a desire for the city to provide more options and help with that. So based on all that information, we are proposing 3 new strategies for the housing production strategies. They are the SDC payment plan, which was authorized by the Bancroft Bonding Act, full or partial SDC waivers for regulated affordable housing, system development charges are SDCs. I will also use those in tandem a lot tonight. And to allocate CET funds towards affordable housing. CET is construction excise tax. I'll go into each of these in detail. And so all 3 of these strategies are financially backed and meet that 0 to 60% MFI. So, we chose these deliberately to, meet where DLCD says we are lacking in the HPS, as well as, strategies that we felt were appropriate and met some of the stakeholder comments. So, also just a brief look at, our current housing landscape in addition to what the documents are saying. A reminder that we do have some existing affordable housing that's regulated in Canby. A lot of it is targeted for seniors, 62 years and older. This is one example here, the Canby Village Apartments, which is the northwest area of town, and offers rental assistance that is 30% of folks' income who live there and meet the requirements. Another example we wanted to share was that Habitat for Humanity recently did an 18-unit subdivision in Silverton. It's a mixture of a couple single-family homes and largely duplexes. This project is an ownership model, so Habitat for Humanity basically helps fund the mortgages and allows these families to move into these homes, and ultimately, if they can stay in good standing with them, buy the houses themselves. So this is a long-term option. They serve families between 30% and 80% MFI. It was 18 units, and we talked to Habitat for Humanity to understand, what made this project pencil out, because that's the biggest problem for a lot of these projects is really getting all the assistance that's needed. And for them, they received SDC waivers from the City of Silverton, as well as they waived the school CET funds. They waived the school CET funds, yeah. So in talking about these strategies, as I mentioned earlier, the housing production strategies are, intended to be somewhat broad with, the intention is there, but the specifics of the strategy are not there. But that is to say, in this discussion, especially with affordability rates, we realize that, discussing that conditions of the affordability, such as, how long does it need to be affordable for? So deed restriction years, here we've given the example of 50 years, as well as affordability rate can be important. So that's something to keep in mind as we discuss these proposed strategies. And again, they're intended to be frameworks, and the specifics can be determined at the implementation stage. So the first strategy we have is the SDC payment plan authorized by the Bancroft Bonding Act. This act allows local governments to finance public improvements such as SDCs through bonding for up to 10 years. And so basically what that means is a developer can pay SDCs through the course of a 10-year payment plan with the interest rate that's set up front, rather than having to pay all their SDCs up front. So that is a way to give them a little bit more flexibility on their financing. Cities in their housing production strategy that have proposed this tool are Westland, Medford, Grants Pass, and Milwaukee. The affordability target that this strategy serves is 0 to 120% MFI, so basically all housing. We're proposing implementation to begin in 2028 for this strategy. And we do have a townhouse project currently in the works that is interested in using this strategy, and will actually be coming to you all, I believe, in late August to give you the specifics, but there's some pertinent details that we wanted to share that are, applicable to consideration of this strategy. And this local developer is building this townhouse project and said, this will keep the costs down to achieve affordable price point. They would like to use it in order to keep their townhouses below $400,000 per townhouse. And they shared with us that in my experience with townhouse sales, there are 2 dominant purchasing groups: the first-time home buyers and those nearing or in retirement. And both of these groups are highly vulnerable to increased costs. The second strategy is a full or partial STC waiver for affordable housing. So that is where the city chooses to waive or determine an amount to waive the system development charges for a project. The city, in our exemptions for SDCs, we already have this exemption that exists. It says the city allows waivers for very low income persons or families per HUD criteria. Based on the language compared to HUD, I assume that to be approximately 50% MFI and below. But that is required to go through council to get approval. And so we're recommending that become a standard policy, that if someone was to meet X, Y, and Z criteria, they were to know ahead of time and provide that certainty for the developers that that could be an option to them. Cities that use this tool, we already use it. Salem, Lake Oswego, Ashland, McMinnville, Florence, Newburgh, and Forest Grove. One example specifically, so Tiger gives a full STC waiver for affordable housing at 80% MFI and under, and that those projects must remain affordable for at least 20 years, which is truthfully fairly low on the scale of deed restriction timeline that we've seen, or that I've seen through my research. Affordability target is serves 0 to 80% MFI, and we're proposing implementation beginning in 2029. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And the last strategy is allocate CET funds toward affordable housing. CET is construction excise tax. It's a flexible funding source derived from new development because we charge $1 per square foot for every, for all projects that are new development. The funds are flexible. We can use them as we choose, allowing for creative allocation. Cities that currently use this tool are Newport, Milwaukee, Monmouth, Westland, and Happy Valley. I will note that we are in a bit of a unique position with this strategy. So construction excise tax, they changed. So the cities had this construction excise tax for, I forget the exact, I think 20 plus years. Within the last 5 to 10 years, the state changed the policy for what CETs need to be used for, requiring certain allocations of affordable housing into the state's housing department when CETs are charged. But because ours has been in place for so long, we are exempt from this. So we are in a bit of a different situation regarding the CET, but these cities are committing basically the full CET funds that they are creating this fund, unlike us where we already have this fund existing. Something to keep in mind. The affordability target for this strategy is 0 to 120, and the implementation will begin in 2029. So the review of all three strategies, planning staff are recommending that we include all three strategies in the housing production strategies. Quick overview, the first being the payment plan. We have already used this, so in addition to the project that will come to you next month, we have already used this project or this tool before for some projects in town, one being a 23-unit apartment, the other being for Dragonberry Produce, their industrial project, their initial development.
Can I just add
Yeah.
one thing? On the SDC payment plan, that would be at prime rate, so on interest, so that's a 10-year plan, and so really it's just a payment plan. And so in terms of the amount that would be collected, it would still be the same, it's just over time. And just a bit more about the price point. The local developer that is interested in doing this made it very clear that his townhome projects, he'd like to keep them about $399,000 a piece, because that's the price point that is in the market right now, and that would give him the opportunity to do that. So just a bit of more information on that, not to dive into the detail on that, but that's one where it's a payment plan over time.
And I forget if I said this already, payment plan over time with the interest rate set up front.
Yes,
So you're
yes.
capturing the interest throughout them. So that's captured in the cost as well. The second strategy is full or partial SDC waiver for regulated affordable housing. As I already mentioned, this is an existing tool with council approval. And so as some of you may recall, in April 2024, the Canby Center was approved for a partial waiver, and that is because they provide vouchers to folks who use low-income housing. So that has already been used to some extent. And the last is the allocation of CET funds toward affordable housing.
And just on the CET funds, the idea behind that would be not necessarily banking the funds, but actually possibly waiving them, again, with bookends on this, that none of these would be infinite. These would all be quantified in terms of the numeric total for what these would be.
And similar to that, I think, we just want to acknowledge that we understand that, we are bringing financial strategies to you after this budget cycle. But, this was important input that we received from the state, from DLCD, who is the approving authority for this plan. So we believed that it was important to bring some strategies forward that, did have some financial weight to them. And we tried to, intentionally choose ones that would have a larger impact with hopefully lesser financial weight. So for example, the SDC waivers, you're not having to set aside the money prior to it. It's that when the project comes in, you can offer the SDC waiver. And it's rather than having money in a pool that's set aside for some time. So we did bring our recommendations to Planning Commission. They were supportive of the strategies, and one commissioner suggested expanding the focus beyond the 0 to 60 because of how expensive housing is currently, and it's difficult to enter the current housing market as an entry-level buyer. And I will end here on this is a brief overview of the existing strategies and the HPS that existed in October, not including what we've proposed now. And as you'll see here, we've already adopted some of them through our housing efficiency measures update, which is the cottage clusters, the PUDs, and the SDC. And the SDC update is underway, as you all know.
And maybe for the discussion, do you want to go back to the slide with all the choices
Yes.
for the council discussion?
Yes. And so for discussion, we are hoping to, after tonight's meeting, get input from you all and finalize the draft for the housing production strategy. So the next time we would come to you, hopefully, is with the final draft of the housing production strategy for adoption. So.
Okay. All right. Colleagues, any questions? Councilor Stearns? Commissioners, oh yeah, I was counselor, or not UI, did I? I'm used to saying commissioner because I'm UI.
I have several questions, and then one is, if a lot or a unit, housing unit or duplex or townhome is designated as affordable housing, and say it's tied to some restricted deed to some 37.5% or whatever of the median home value or family income value. What does that do to the property tax that's assessed on it? Does that reduce the assessed value and reduce the property tax collection on that unit?
I don't believe that those are parallel in terms of I think the taxation is not affected in that situation. I mean, I think that
So I would pay the same property tax?
you would, I mean, it's based on the
land.
value, it's based on the assessed value, and those are comparables that the county's using.
So they wouldn't decrease the assessed value because it's low income
I don't think you,
or affordable housing?
that's not something we're proposing, but that would not automatically happen because real estate is all based on comparables.
Okay.
And so it'd be, market value, which is highest and best use comparables.
To highest and best use,
Yeah.
even though if it's deed restricted, it obviously couldn't
It would still
sell
be-
as high as it would be if it
Yeah,
was.
the value would still be there, yes.
Okay, so that was one question. I was wondering if we're reducing one fee we are reducing one source of income at the
I
same
think Jody, do you have some information for us? Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that one thing. What it would do is the appraised value would be subject to the deed restriction, which would affect the highest and best use. So it would technically affect the assessed value because technically a property that's encumbered is worth less than a property that's not. So in the real world, I don't know if that's happened because this is also sort of new But I just wanted to clarify that one point.
So there may be a depression of income to all the tax agencies that rely on the property tax assessed value if a house is somehow, or a unit or development or whatever is somehow deed restricted. I mean, so there's another cost. I'm just trying to
No,
analyze the costs, all the costs.
And I
involved.
think this would have to be a comparable that was also encumbered. I think the two points, and thank you, Jody, for that. I think that, I don't know how to measure this, we're not necessarily tax experts here, but I think these would be very limited as well. Let's say there is a Habitat for Humanity project that happens, and let's say that the bookend of this is there's 20 units over 20 years. I mean, that's probably what we're talking about here. We're not talking about hundreds of units necessarily. I mean, those are the things that we can come up with and identify in terms of what this is in terms of our housing production strategy as a framework. All this that Emma talked about as well will come before the council. It all will have to be adopted and vetted through a public hearing process with all the details. This is setting the framework for a future date, most of these are out at least 3 years, if not more. Most of them are about 4 years out.
Yeah,
So in
I'm just trying to ascertain if there's other costs
No,
besides just
it's
the
a-
potential waiver of the SDC or the potential delay in collecting money from STDs or.
And I think on the SDC part, and maybe just going through that on the financial portfolio, is the SDC waiver or reduction. Again, this would be bookend on what we would put in as the maximum number of units that the city would be willing to do. But there'd be less SDC funds available, but it would not affect the methodology of the SDC program. So essentially, we would have less money that we would collect. But again, on how many units that would be, it may not be very many units overall.
Okay, no, I just, yeah, so you're saying that, just to clarify what I was saying, so if you deed restrict a property, there's a chance that, as a condition of getting a waiver of the SDCs or some CET funds, there's a distinct possibility that the property tax revenues might decrease as a result of that, so you get a cost for the SDC waiver and a cost for perhaps reduction in property tax revenues going forward. I mean, the exact amounts maybe have to be looked up later, but that's one concern that we look at when we're looking at the costs of it. I'm not saying what we should do or not do. I'm just trying to say when we do have our eyes open to all the costs involved, not just one of the upfront costs. What other question I maybe have is, what we're doing right now, or what we're planning on doing, is get a strategy, a high-level strategy, correct? How bound are we to that high-level strategy for the future? In other words, if we sign on the dotted line tonight, does that encumber the council, or we're going to get sued for not following it over the years, or how much is actually at stake as far as?
There's a recognition that council members change over time in the program, and that these all could be renegotiated. Essentially, what we are trying to do is have a portfolio of things to choose from. Some of them may end up having to be renegotiated with DLCD. They'd have to be replaced with something else. Our goal tonight would be, we're hoping to come away with 2 of the 3 on this list of some sort, because we think that might be sufficient for DLCD. We're not really sure where the bright line is, because we're actually still doing less than I think the other jurisdictions are doing to some degree, but I think at least it addresses the MFI that Emma identified. And so I think that in terms of that issue, I was talking to Randy earlier today, and it sounded like, we can't really bind future councils to decisions that are made as well, so if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So that's part of it. And so I think this is off in the distance away, and we're just trying to put a framework parameter around this. At the same time, effectively, really the core here is effectively trying to do what we can without significant financial damage to the city finances. It's a balance we're trying to figure out here. I do think the deed restrictions on that part, I am much more of a proponent of Habitat and faith-based organizations putting their own deed restrictions on than the city putting the deed restrictions on somebody else's property. That's their program, and they're running that. I also feel like Habitat is a great organization. I've been part of that organization, helping do their builds. And ultimately, there's a deed of ownership that the person gets at the end, which is not just a period of time, but the end result is ownership. And I think that's what we're striving for here, is to get to that point. So I do think that particular organization is a good one. There's been some faith-based organizations here in town that have also talked about having mixed-use development where they have housing above and offices below. As well. Again, that would have to, again, be long-term commitment. I think this is the goal here, is not just something in 10 years and then that's market rate and suddenly everybody's thrown out of their home. That's not a non-starter in our opinion. It'd have to be a long-term play here where you're actually doing something. We're spending city dollars, and I think getting back in return is an investment in the community where someone has a place to live over time is a fair trade-off.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the
Yeah.
Humanity. I used to, in another state, I did their books, and I know about their calculating the shared equity agreements that they have with the Habitat for Humanity. One more question. You mentioned that they could finance the STC. That's the option one, I guess, is having the developer finance the STCs. And it mentioned there was a prime rate. Would that be a variable rate or a fixed rate on those things? How do they usually work?
The ones in the past, I believe, were fixed rates, and we are proposing prime plus 0.1% for.
As sort of a fixed rate?
Yeah, fixed rate.
So there is a little bit of a rate risk there involved.
And I think right now rates are probably more favorable to us, if anything, because they're really high. So, and again, this is, I think, on a case-by-case basis with someone coming forth with a pro forma of what they're trying to achieve here. So we're not just saying, I mean, I think historically on an administrative level, it was just basically taken care of administratively. We had a bit of different counsel at that time, and our current counsel is saying that really should go before this, the city council, because it's really not in our code exactly, even though it's state law, that it's available to do. But I think that, again, is a targeted thing where in particular, if somebody comes and says, I can make this work and hit a certain price point, which is very delicate as to whether or not someone has a first-time house or not, I'd like us to see if we can push that forward here. I think that's a positive thing.
Okay, so I'm kind of in favor of
We
one.
need to let Jody get in
Yeah,
here.
Jody,
Hang on.
please.
Go ahead, Jody.
Yeah.
I can't, too small on my screen to see her.
You're right, and I don't want to rehash all this. I just wanted to touch on the question that had to do with what are the repercussions to not following through in the housing production strategy. There, like Don said, DLCD is going to be doing their best to work with cities because time changes everything. But there are statutory reporting requirements, and essentially what the process is once the city adopts this ordinance adopting the housing production strategy, there will be, DLCD will put out a public comment period for about 45 days, I believe. And DLCD will then take into consideration the public comments, their own criteria, and then they'll actually issue an order whether or not adopting formally the housing production strategy. They could always remand it back to the city to fix in some way. Once DLCD approves it, then there's, I believe it's like an 18-month period where there's this, don't quote me on the 18 months, there's this regular periodic reporting requirement from the city to show compliance with the housing production strategy. And there's very specific things that have to be reported on if it's shown that, it's very subjective, but if LCD or LCDC, I can't remember which one, decides that they're not making adequate progress, there are some repercussions written in the code written in statute, might be rule that the LCD can take against the city to sort of force it. But this is all new, so whether or not they ever go there, I don't think we'd see that for quite some time, because I think that, I would hope that LCDC and the LCD understand this is a learning process for everybody. So I just wanted to make that clarification, just
So there are,
Thank you,
broader.
Jody. Did that answer your question, Dan?
so just to restate that, there could be some repercussions for us to adopt a strategy and be accused later on of not adopting it in good faith or changing it afterwards.
But yes, I don't know if I go, I don't know, I would hope that they wouldn't come back with some sort of final order, which is DLC's, stick that they use, accusing the city of somehow not abiding by its own ordinance. I would hope it would be a more back and forth conversation. But yeah, statutes give DLC a lot of power, sort of order as they see fit. But I don't want to worry anybody about that. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that,
Okay, no, it's
this
good.
isn't just, yeah.
It's always good to know when we're adopting something, how
What the unintended consequences could be.
of not being as careful as we could be, adopting the wrong thing and then regretting it afterwards. The measure twice, cut once, what the carpenters say, Just to follow up a little, our mayor's raising a hand. I better not,
Mayor Hodson.
Thanks. Sorry that I can't be there tonight. So I have a slew of questions and comments, I think, which is nothing new. So Dawn and Emma, is there a way you can address in other communities or even in ours where we've used the CET, what that fee impact has been on business as well as housing development?
So I don't know if we would have that metric, the CETs that folks, the cities I mentioned are proposing it in their HPS. So, like us, they probably won't be implemented for at least a couple of years. And those CETs are specifically for housing, and 4% can be used for administration of housing. So I don't think any of the money can go to not residential development. But I at least don't have handy if there's a city that has already kind of put it into place. I can try and do a little bit more research to see what's existing.
And maybe just a clarification just on, we're proposing to leave the CET fund collection as it is now. If we raise it at all, we are 100% responsible to be just like the other jurisdictions are, where 96% of those CET funds go to affordable housing.
Which we don't want to do.
That's what we're not suggesting. We're not suggesting that. We're suggesting keeping our vested CET funds, which are part of our general fund. Someone was really smart when they put this together and back in the day, which are unrestricted funds, because no one else, I think, has this in the state. But because other jurisdictions are using CET funds for affordable housing, it was a question that, and you saw that for the Habitat example in Silverton, that was something that was waived there or could be partially waived, again, for a limited number of units, and that would be kind of the focus here.
So thanks for that, Don and Emma, I appreciate it. I guess what I'm asking is not so much like, charging CET, a CET fee just seems a bit counterintuitive. When we're trying to keep housing costs low, we charge a CET when we know highly likely that the builder or developer passes that on to the home buyer. And so it's always something for me that have always been just a bit of a head scratcher in terms of why that gets charged. So, and I guess what I'm looking at is how does this, by having the CET, has that slowed the build out or the development of housing and businesses? Not that we can can use not where we can use the funds, but its impact in slowing it and making Canby less attractive because we have it? Or are we following into this piece where, we're one of many communities that have it, ours just happens to be maybe on the lower end of it?
I think you just touched on it, Mayor. I mean, it's $1 per square foot. So when you talk about these really large projects, that can add up, but relative to the other development costs, it's fairly low in the long run, I would say.
I think it's something for us to keep track of as we update our SDCs. Right now, I would agree with Emma. It is not, I don't believe it's a significant impediment to development. Cumulatively, over time, it may be something to be looked at.
I wanted to add one more thing about it. Sorry. So the other beauty of a CET compared to like an SDC is that there's no restrictions on how it's used, right? An SDC, there's a very narrow, we have no restrictions on how we choose to use it. And those other cities, they have to give a portion to the state, but other than that, they're choosing to, they have to use it for affordable housing, but how does that look is fully up to them. It doesn't have to be, a specific type of thing. So it's a very flexible funding source, I guess I would say, compared to other funding options, is it one of its main benefits.
Okay. I like the Bancroft Bonding Act. I think that, like we said, you got the examples there on the slide. I think it's been beneficial for the couple of projects that have used it. I mean, I'd like to see that be an option for the city of Canby. Are there funding and building, I guess, cooperation? So can CET funds be used and then waived, like if we were doing a cluster development or there was a development of duplex and or triplex developments?
Can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
Sure. So like if we take away, if we allocate, so looking at option number 3, so if we allocate some CET funds towards affordable housing, can we then use some of those funds for, again, as an example, a cluster development, but then would there be CET charges on that development of the cluster development? Is, I guess, my first question. And then my second question would be, can that just be, waived by us so that they're really getting the full benefit and maximum build out?
So yes, we can choose to waive it. It's our, it's our fee. So we have full choice of if we want to waive it. We could also apply it to a project. I guess it would come down to, how much funds are available, what piece of the project do we, how much money do you want to give, how much is available to give, would, be dependent on a lot of factors. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Dawn, you had mentioned that there was some feedback from the Planning Commission about increasing the income level, not keeping it at 0 to 60%, but 0 to X%. Was there a percent talked about, or has there been a percent kicked around as a higher percent to look at?
Oh,
Go back to this.
I didn't include an exact number.
Does staff have I mean, if we were to increase that, would there be a recommendation right now from staff, or is that something that would need to be brought back to us?
Let's see, 80.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
it's
80,
fairly
80.
common to see affordable housings offer 80 to, 80% MFI and under is a fairly common metric used for affordable housing.
Okay. And then how many, Dawn and Emma, how many units are we looking at that would end up in that 0 to 60% with, again, looking at our overall housing strategy? I think, Councilor Stearns was asking, and there was, I think the comment made that there wouldn't be a lot of those, but do we have, define what would be not a lot?
Can you rephrase that? Mayor, slightly? I'm trying to grasp it.
Sorry. It's been a long day, so my brain is a bit mushy going into this tonight.
Okay.
So when we're looking at our total housing numbers that were supposedly being forecasted for, of that number, how many units or what percentage of those units are is being expected of us to have as low income or entry-level housing?
Well, we know that low and moderate housing is 500 units out of a total of about 2,300.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
That's the demand, and this is the part where ultimately we need to make a dent in that 500. I mean, there's not an exact way of addressing this per se, but that's what the goal is here.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect. So I guess my last comment, I don't have any other questions, but my comment, I guess, for the council to be considering is, with that number being, it's 500, we can't necessarily develop that from a single family or duplex or triplex strategy alone. We're gonna have to be looking at probably something more on the lines of a series of apartment build outs in that regards. And so with that being said, as we look at that 500, I think we need to focus on creating entry-level housing for people. If we're going to, as we look at this route, it's harder and harder for people to get into home ownership. And if we've got tools that we can put into place like these here, I would rather see these tools being used towards that angle to create those opportunities for new home buyers, and helping that from a strategy standpoint. That's just my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
And great points. And some of this, I think, in the code update that we will be doing as well, there are some parallel conversations on that about those entry-level home situations, lot size, kind of design, those elements that we would be revisiting as part of the code update, which are also housing production strategy elements, which we haven't focused really on tonight. But there's more than just these three. It's really the idea behind that is all in, if we end up with 15 of these, that all in, it works together as a whole on that.
From we're talking to developers and they say they want to keep things at a certain price and so forth, is there any sort of guarantee on that, or is it just like sort of this is my word, and like we give them the break and then what?
The only way to guarantee is through deed restriction or, some agreement, and we're offering X, Y, and Z strategy, and you're entering to a contract that you agree to this. But really, deed restriction is the primary method.
And the deed restriction, is that a contract with the city?
Can you explain the?
Or is that a contract with the purchaser, but like?
There could
Who
be,
enforces
the
that,
city
I guess?
could put a deed restriction
Okay.
on property. I'm not sure if this developer in particular would be interested in that, and there's a bit of a trust situation going on. I would, again, the parameters and metrics have not been really worked out, just to be completely upfront. This local developer is someone that's done a lot of projects here and has a trusted record.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference in this whole process. And I think that part, I think legitimately he came up with like, here's my pro forma of what I'm trying to accomplish. And he bookended it and said it's the entry level person, and it's the person that retired. And so he's obviously, and we could ask for a bit more information.
And I'm
on
not
that,
talking
yeah.
about that, really,
Yeah.
it's just, that was just the example. It's not really that particular developer.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like any developer.
No, and I think part of that is on the Bancroft bonding thing, because I don't think we really lose anything in the end on this. We're getting prime interest on this, and he likely will pay it off before 10 years and there'll be no penalty. It's just, we don't get that money up front. I mean, that's over time. And again, if this was limited to a certain number of units over the span of this program, it feels like we have nothing that we lose in that
Yeah,
situation.
and I'm not, I actually
Yeah.
would be in favor of that one. I do agree with the mayor on the entry level versus apartments, at least focusing on that. Entry level people are probably most likely going to stay longer in town, being more invested in the city. Apartment, you may move more often. So I like the idea of having that base within the city and people being able to take ownership here locally and within their city. For the strategies, do we pick and choose which strategies we're going to offer to what developer? Or is it all of them open to everybody? Like how does that
And
work?
what we would need to do is, all of these would be coming back before council to some degree, some of them more so than others. Anything that changes the rules will be an ordinance, and so you all will see that before anything ever happens. This is a wish list, actually.
But if we approve like 3 of them, like.
Yeah, they would have those opportunities. If all these got adopted all at once, they could do all of them.
They
but
pick one or the other, or
They could pick
them all, or?
They could do a variety. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And-
I'll just add, I think the intent is to create certainty for these developers. So, creating parameters that if not pick and choose, or they can pick and choose, but if you meet these certain parameters, you qualify
So they
think
could
generally-
qualify for all of them.
Yeah, and maybe in some
Okay.
scenario they could, yeah.
Okay, Counselor Davis.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. And I do support the staff's recommendations. I too in line with what Paul was talking about in regards to enforcement side of it is probably the more important part, because of the fact that, he could say that they're doing this and then raise the price, whatever that might be. So I don't know how, it seems like that would be something that has to be looked at in regards to the actual enforcement for that. And then, Don, you mentioned something about Dragonberry. Have we offered deductions
That
for
was-
commercial?
This is way before my time, but we went back into the files, and so Dragonberry, I believe, on their initial building, did a payment plan for their building. They did the Bancroft financing. You can do it for residential or commercial buildings.
Okay.
So
for the
this has been done. We're just trying to identify that this is not the first time that someone's asking for this, and there may have been others that we're not aware of, but there's been at least 2 times that we're aware that the financing has happened. I don't think most people are aware that Bancroft Act even exists.
Right.
I mean, and some of the developers, like, I didn't even know this existed. It's just not very, very common.
Okay, and then my next question or follow-up is, I support what the mayor's talking about too in regards to the fact of, we've got an immediate problem with the lack of affordable housing in Canby. And we're looking 3 to 5 years out, you said, before we enact this. But what do we do with the existing problem that we have? Why can't we expedite that? Why can't we speed that up?
And great point. And I mean, as we get in, we'll be coming back to you all with more information and a hearing format. And we can absolutely look at moving some of these forward more quickly.
Okay. And then, of course, with the financing part comes keeping track of what the impacts are going to be to the city with the lack of SDCs for parks and streets. I think that we have to look at what are going to be the impacts for that. So when it comes back in front of us, we're going to have to give some kind of ballpark in regards to what are going to be the impacts. So if you took a 25-unit subdivision, what would be the impacts to the city so that upfront we know what we're approving and what those loss of revenues for parks and streets is going to be?
We can provide examples, scenario examples. I think that's a great question.
Some examples
Yeah.
of that, yeah. And my last one too is what the mayor was talking about is going back to whether it's small housing clusters, apartments, or duplexes or something, so that somebody can submit on a duplex or on a smaller unit for that as well. But I would say trying to expedite that as soon as possible, because we currently have an issue, and with the comp plan and the housing needs analysis, that could happen very soon in regards to some of these plots as soon as that comprehensive plan is approved.
All right, any final question? Last question, we're going to be done on time, Daniel.
If they're financing the SDCs, that there will be a lien on the property placed on that for those.
For the bankrupt financing, yes, there, absolutely. In
So
that
the
case,
city's interest would be protected in that case against.
we have asked for a property appraisal and title report, yes. So that, and you all will see that specific example coming before you. You'll see the property that the lien is on. You'll see the title report for that. So yes, that will be secured. That's not something historically we have done. We've not asked for the other two that have happened, I don't believe, with a security. It's just been a contract. So that's something that BEH was recommending, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, so I would definitely, but I think that option one would be the great one to go through, because if it's secured by a lien,
Yeah.
we're getting interest rate on it, then the city's not really out money in the long term.
Yes,
Although there may be
absolutely.
some short-term
Yep.
issues that may need to be.
And I think that clearly needs to be baked into the formula as well, that we would do it the same way.
Okay. Any final thoughts from Jody before we sign off? Okay, well, thank you for being here, Jody. With that.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to adjourn the work session and be back here for
Thank
the
you.
regular meeting in 2 minutes.
Nice job. Excellent work.
Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the July 16th City Council meeting. Please rise for invocation and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this community and the great leaders that are standing here beside me. Thank you for us all having a wonderful, safe holiday celebration. Watching the community members get together was just a joy. And thank you for everything that you bless us with. Keep our first responders and our military safe and bring everyone home safely. In God's name, thank you. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of these days, you'll learn there's not a comma. All right, first up on the agenda, looks like we have no new employees, so we are going to call up Ms. Jamie Stickle and Tyler Nizer for a 4th of July recap.
Just Tyler today.
Just Tyler, oh, all right, he's going solo. Kicking him from the nest. Good job, Jamie. Welcome, Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tyler Nizer. I'm the Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator for the City of Canby. And in the Economic Development and Tourism Department, we wear many different hats. One of those hats being the planning of our 5 major events that take place throughout the year. And we were thrilled that we got to have 2 of those take place the first week of July. And that was the first Thursday night market and Canby Independence Day celebration. So I wanted to put a little plug in there for the Canby Independence, or the first Thursday night market, which was on Thursday, July 3rd. And it saw our best turnout yet of both attendance and vendors. We had the Children's Entrepreneur Market, which was along Holly Street in between 1st, almost all the way up to 3rd. And this was 40 vendors of kids showcasing their businesses, and it was just fun to see that. We had additional vendors over on 1st and 2nd Avenue in between Holly and Grant, and we were on 2nd Avenue in between Holly and Grant, where there was a Willamette Valley Big Band, and then we also did the scavenger hunt, which we hear from the local businesses of kind of what we want to theme it around. They wanted to do it around the Independence Day, and so we hit around little gnome guys that were themed around that. And that was our way of getting people circulating through our local businesses and visiting them and supporting our local businesses. So lots of activity. There was the mini cruising over at Cuts Force. Canby Cinema was showcasing a free video, which I believe it was the Goonies. And there was live entertainment over in front of Country Financial and on 1st Avenue. So great time, great evening, and it kicked off the weekend as the next day was Independence Day, Canby's Independence Day celebration on July 4th, Friday, which is always good when it's connected to a weekend because we see a lot of people making a weekend out of it, staying with family, staying with friends, and staying in Canby. So a lot more in attendance, a lot more people participating. It kicked off at 10 a.m. With the parade, and we saw a dozen more applications this year, so we were thrilled of the expansion of that, and we're even seeking opportunities with the Canby Rotary Club and making a service project and seeing how we can grow that for next year, so we're really thrilled about that. And in the parade, we honor our Grand Marshal, who was Judy Oss this year. I can't say enough about how much Judy Oss has been for this community. I can't even list the amount of organizations she's volunteered on. Huge impact for Canby, and we were grateful to honor her as a Grand Marshal in the Independence Day celebration. After the parade, there was live entertainment that filled both Waite Park and the beer garden, and that was with 21 Turns Band, Bridgetown Get Down, and the June Bugs. And saw many families, many kids, adults of all ages, dancing along and celebrating and really enjoying the music. So they all did a fantastic job. And overall, the event went off without any major issues. The residents and visitors really enjoyed all the activities within the events. There was the Canby Fires obstacle course. And there was also the car show and the kids zone, which thank you to the Canby Christian Church for their support in the tie-dye booth and operating that. We really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. There was the bouncy houses, face painting, all sorts of great activities within the kids zone. And I can't forget the street fair. We had 20 additional vendors in the street fair, so we've filled up almost all of 3rd Avenue. And so we're really thrilled about how we can grow and where we could grow with the event next year as well. So excited about that opportunity and the additional vendors we've had there. And overall, just a successful and great event. So thank you first and foremost to you, City Council, for supporting this event and continuing the Canby Independence Day celebration. Not only is it something that the Canby community, visitors, and residents really enjoy and cherish, it's something that our businesses really look forward to, as we've heard from them, that it's one of the biggest days that make their cash registers ring. And I know that's near and dear to your hearts of supporting our local businesses as it is to ours. And so thank you for continuing this event on and helping support our local businesses and economy through that event. And so also I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Dick's Canby Ford, our sponsors, Columbia Distributing, Cuts Force Market, Canby Community Advantage Magazine, Canby Disposal, Gwynn's Willamette Coffee House, Canby Rental and Equipment, City of Canby, and Canby Business. Just helping fill that gap in between the revenue and the expenses, and we just really appreciate their support in sponsoring. And last but not least, certainly not least, our incredible volunteers and the organizations that helped this event take place, thinking of our Public Works team, our Parks team, Canby Police, Canby Fire, and everybody who's had a hand in making this event come to life. One of our long-standing volunteers now for the event, Greg Perez. Many people see him as the MC of the event, but there's so much more that he does behind the scenes, and we truly appreciate all of his efforts as well. So thank you to everyone for bringing this to life and making it happen. We look forward to 2026 Canby Independence Day celebration, as I know the community does. We got a call in today that there was somebody looking for the parade registrations for Canby Independence Day celebration of 2026. So we don't quite have those up yet, but as soon as we get those ready, we'll post them on their website. So thank you, and we look forward to the next opportunity.
It's great to be coveted. All right.
You know,
Thanks, Tyler.
I would say this year was the first year I actually missed the Independence celebration, and I regretted every minute of it. My neighborhood, we host a pretty big Independence Day party, and I mean, this year I think we had 33 people at our house, so it was pretty intense. But the greatest thing is a lot of them bring their families in from Morgan City, Westland, Clackamas. I mean, it gets absolutely insanely, but they go down here all the time. And then families come walking down our street, and we ask if they came from the parade or anything like that. And just the praise that you guys were getting for those events was absolutely phenomenal. So great job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks.
All right. Citizen input and community announcements. I have one yellow card. Teresa, is there anybody online? Okay. Paul.
Thank you. I'm glad you didn't try the last name.
I wasn't even going to try to attempt it. I don't feel like tying my tongue.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the way you guys start the meeting. I appreciate all of it with a prayer, pledge of allegiance, and I appreciate everything you guys do here. I'm not here to complain. I'm trying to fix something that the city needs to fix. And it's going to be brief. The comment section that I put was July 4th, 2025, 7:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. And that's being generous with the 12:30 a.m. on July 5th. That's the kind of concussive explosions that go on in our neighborhood, the illegal kind. And it's been doing this a long time. The following questions not only need to be answered, they also should be the following questions not only need to be answered, they also should be answered. And this is, what is the penalty for transporting illegal explosive devices across our state line? What is the penalty for using illegal explosive devices in the state of Oregon or the city of Canby? What is the penalty for using multiple illegal explosive devices? The following questions pertain to the Canby Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare Synopsis, Chapter 9.48, titled Noise Control. What is the penalty for violating continuous sound? What is the penalty for violating nighttime period? What is the penalty for noise-sensitive land use? What is the penalty for plainly audible? 9.48.030, prohibited acts. What is the penalty for violating number 9, explosives? 9.48.40, maximum permissible sound levels. What is the penalty for violating A, B, and C? I'm asking the citizens of Canby to read the city council values and goals. I'm also asking the city council to review their values and goals in the synopsis. If the aforementioned questions do not match the city's values and goals, why are these behaviors tolerated year after year, year after year? That's 4 at least. 9.48.20, responsibility and authority. A and B, numbers 1 through 6. Please present us with a solution for our city. One problem area is South Ivy and South Fir Street from Southwest 3rd to Southwest 7th. I would greatly appreciate the input. I can even take out the illegal explosives, but when you go to the public peace and morals, this whole thing is, the noise is not right. Everything is wrong in here, and it seems that the city of Canby is tolerating this because it goes on. Is there any response from anybody?
Do you have that list written down? I was trying to write down your questions, and I can't write that fast, but if you could leave your list of questions with Teresa.
This?
The questions you just asked us. If we can't address them all right now, but we're happy to get back to you with them.
And again, I would like to be part of the solution. I'm not here to sit there and make the complaints. I know the police department runs safety checks on 99E. I know they do the crosswalks. I mean, all of this is to get the community better. In your goal statement, again, it's like, I'm going to squint, continue to improve the quality of life for the citizens. Well, this is not. So
Understood.
These are the things that need to be addressed. Can somebody copy this? Because I'd like to have it.
Yeah,
And I feel sorry for you have to read my handwriting.
there you go. Yeah,
No problem,
she'll
sir.
snap a photo, and then Randy
We'll follow up
and Chief
tomorrow.
Tro can talk about it, and we'll try to come up with a solution, and it'll maybe be on a future agenda.
And then will somebody notify me as to some of the stuff here?
Since you asked,
Your
yes.
phone number on there?
I have a phone number on here.
And then, like I said, I would love to participate. If you need me, I'm here. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, next up on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Council President, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes approval of the June 11th, 2025 City Council Special Called Work Session Meeting minutes, the June 16th, 2025 City Council Special Called Meeting minutes, and the June 18th, 2025 City Council Work Session Regular Meeting minutes.
It's been moved by Councilor Maldonado and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve the consent agenda that includes the approval of the June 11th, 2025 City Council Special Called Work Session Meeting Minutes, the June 16th, 2025 City Council Special Called Meeting Minutes, and the June 18th, 2025 City Council Work Session and Regular Meeting Minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. So that's 5-0.
Ryan Wade raised his hand and said aye. He raised his hand and said aye.
He doesn't get a vote. He knows it. All right, very good. We're moving into resolutions and
I
ordinances.
raised my hand, Maldonado.
That's what I just told her.
Hot mics.
Okay. First up on the agenda is considering ordinance number 1650. This is for a second reading. Is there anything new, Emily?
Nothing new substantive, except that the CPA membership has voted to ratify, which is great news for us. And this will be a done deal once we vote tonight, and if that vote goes yes.
Okay. All right, then. I'll consider a motion.
Council President,
Yes.
I move to ratify the proposed CBA by adopting ordinance number 1650, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement CVA between the City of Canby and the Canby Police Association declaring an emergency.
Okay, that was a premature second, but I'll take it.
Apologize.
It's been moved by Counselor Davis and seconded by Counselor Maldonado to adopt ordinance number 1650, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Canby, Oregon, and the Canby Police Association. Just a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Maldonado,
Aye.
Council President Hensley,
Aye.
Counselor Davis,
Aye.
Counselor Stearns,
Aye.
Counselor Waterman,
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-4. Next up is ordinance 1651. Looks like this is Jerry.
Yeah, I'll tee this up. First, Council President, members of the council, this agenda bill comes forward. Councilor Davis is your liaison to the Parks and Rec Committee. They were briefed on this last night, unanimous support, and our Public Works Director is going to offer some background. Hopefully we've got a picture we can put up on the screen here. There is a friendly amendment in the background that I think Jerry can cover with regards to tennis and pickleball and soccer. Jerry, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Council President, Council Mayor. I'm excited to be here tonight to be finally bringing this forward to the City Council. And this ordinance is to authorize the city administrator to enter into a contract with Connell Construction to construct a new park. It's this property we have is over at 2041 North Locust. It's on next to the Auburn Farm subdivision. It's property that was gave to us in lieu of for SDC fees to build a park there back in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, years ago, and we've been trying to build it ever since. So this park, we really have done a lot of work on the Parks Advisory Committee. I can't thank them enough. They and Jamie Stickle helped with public outreach on this. We reached out to the community, and we were able to have the Auburn Farms Community HOA be fully involved in all of this. So everyone should be really happy with this. It changed a lot. I apologize for the rendering. We kind of ran low on engineering money because we had so many changes and so much public outlook. So this one's close. It isn't the exact design, but this is close to what it is. The only thing that's really different is the angled sidewalk next to the basketball court, and then to the left is a soccer field with a soccer deal. So it's going to have gazebos in this, matching the ones that are at the splash pad, picnic tables, benches, trees. Worked with the Canby Fire Department, so they approved the parking lot for in and out access. Was able to go through the engineering for safe access to this with crosswalks getting to it. And so, let's see, we had 10 bids, which was amazing, and we got awesome prices. We actually budgeted $3.3 million for this project because everything was coming in so high. We got a lot of bids, and we came in way under budget on this, so that's even better news. So that's kind of it.
How much was that again?
We budgeted 3.3 million, but the ordinance is for $2,090,927,000. So, yeah, great news there.
That is great news.
But other than that, I'll try to keep this fast. I know the council president likes to run a fast meeting. I'm here for any questions. If you want to.
Here's a question I have, and actually, this comes through several citizens have come to me with the same question from the Auburn Farms, and the question they have always is, and not to be critical of anything, but why did it take almost 20 years to get the park going? And like I say, I'm not saying it's a personal criticism, but a lot of people have asked me that question.
That's an easy
fair
answer.
question.
It's a combination of things. Funding, because we didn't have personnel. We were able to get the parks maintenance fee to help get more personnel and cost, and then getting the parks master plan updated so we could use the SDC funds to fund this. So the last couple of years, that's what we've been working on, is getting the master plan updated and so that we can do this. So that's the main reason why we didn't get
Okay.
it done. So
And the
fast.
follow-up question on that, is there other parks that are, been waiting that long to be developed, or?
Not that long, but they're getting there. We got some stuff that we need to get done, like Ivy Ridge and stuff where we've had property. We went through a big period of, we were taking land for parks and then we stopped. And then now we're really monitoring on what type of land we take in. We go through the Parks Advisory and New Council before we do land without waiving the SDCs.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for Jerry?
I would just offer, stay tuned for a groundbreaking with the council and public to be determined.
Yep,
Very
we'll
short.
get through the readings and
Celebration.
That would be great. Looking forward to it. Okay, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 1651, ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with Cono Construction and Demolition Corporation for $2,090,927 for the construction of Auburn Farms Park to a second reading on August 6, 2025.
It's been moved by Counselor Waterman and seconded by Counselor Davis to approve ordinance number 1651, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with Connell Construction and Demolition Corporation for the amount of $2,090,927 for the construction of Auburn Farms Park to a second reading on August 6, 2025. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 1652. Randy? Oh, did you have a question, Mayor?
Yeah.
I did.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
If it's at all possible for the second reading, if we can get an updated rendering for that conversation, that would be great.
I'm seeing Jerry nod his head yes,
Yes.
and Randy as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good catch. Okay, 1652. Randy?
Yes, Council President, councilors, Dawn is here to answer any questions. This is an amendment to scope of work for our TSP and urban growth boundary contract with 3J Consulting. We had Don add in all the great grant work that has been secured by the city and his staff at the bottom of this backgrounder. Pretty impressive amount of grant work. This extension is for $82,000, but any other color that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Randy. Just very briefly, this is a continuation of the work for the comprehensive plan and urban growth boundary expansion. So the two things will be the comprehensive plan adoption, transportation system plan adoption, and urban growth boundary adoption. Those are the things that are baked into this and system development charge work that's very specific to parks and addressing future park acreage, levels of service, those kinds of things. We're updating the SDC list as part of this work as well. The grants here are two that we have secured, and one is coming. And there's a $250,000 grant from ODOT that we're receiving. We're also submitting for grants this cycle for DLCD. Those are due August 4th, and it's for the same work as well. The state has excess money, and they've encouraged us to submit for those, along with another set of grants that will start a separate cycle in August for the wetland inventory, which we'll also have to do the urban growth boundary expansion. And although we don't have a lot of wetlands, they're expensive to do. The inventories are expensive to do. So that's another grant we'll be seeking as well. I'm here to answer any questions that you may all have on this. If not, I'm happy to just respond to anything that you have.
Okay. Any questions from council, mayor? None from the mayor? Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
You answered all our questions prematurely.
Thank you.
Preemptive, love it. All right, I'll accept a motion. Unless there's discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to consider ordinance 16 52, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to amend the contract adopting for the comprehensive plan, transportation system plan, and urban growth boundary scope of work and budget for fiscal year 25-26 to second reading on August 6th,
Second.
2025.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Counselor Stearns and seconded by Counselor Maldonado to approve ordinance number 1652, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to amend the contract adopting for the comprehensive plan, transportation system plan, and urban growth boundary scope of work and budget for fiscal year 25-26 to a second reading on August 6, 2025. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question from the mayor.
Aye.
Sorry. Never mind.
He said he didn't have a question.
Did you mean to raise your hand, Mayor?
I was raising my hand to say aye, but aye.
You don't get to vote, sir. Okay, next up is ordinance number 1653. Randy.
Thank you, Council President, members of council. First reading here, your Transit Fleet Services and IT Director Todd Wood is here, as well as Heidi, I see. They can present this agenda item. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to let Heidi go.
Thanks. Yeah, so council, I got a motion up here for you guys for us to purchase one F-250 utility truck, mostly for our transit operations and fleet services for our transit buses. Currently, I am borrowing our admin Honda, and it can't carry 10-foot bus poles. And so, for an example, yesterday I actually got a call. I had to go out and take one of our signs down for a construction project, and I ended up having to reach out to our wonderful Public Works team to beg them to let me borrow the bucket truck so I could go get that done. So this utility truck will be utilized for bus sign repairs, any type of repairs like that. It would also assist fleet if we got a call out for a bus down on the side of the road. It would have equipment, fluids, spare parts, all that stuff. It'll be properly lit up per DOT requirement for safety with emergency lights, and it would just really help us out.
And put a finer point on it, I understand it's able to be shared back and forth with, you mentioned fleet, but also Public Works.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry's going to have to beg.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It'll be a newer truck, so I know they're going to want to use it.
Beg as much as you did, right?
But they've been kind enough to let me use their vehicle, so we all help each other out, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Heidi's been asking for this for years, and I've put her off and put her off and put her off. This last year, we came in pretty far under budget on the contract because dollar rate was a little on the low side. And so I said, okay, if we're going to do it, let's just get it done. She has had to borrow a Public Works truck for a long time, and she has to coordinate with Public Works to try to get a truck every time a sign's down, every time something's broken. And now we have shelters. And those poles are 10 feet tall. The shelters need specific equipment. We don't have a good way to carry them. So she went out, found a vehicle at a state-approved vendor, and they have them on the lot, which is the reason for your favorite declaring of emergency. Because as you know, things on lots go quick. And if we have to wait 60 days, there's a good chance it won't be there. We're hoping it'll still be at the end of 2 weeks. So that's the reason we did the emergency, is so we could get it quick. Because if we have to wait until later in the year, it's going to be more expensive.
It's fair. Okay. Councilman Maldonado, you had your hand up.
Yes, a couple questions, actually. I'm assuming this is a standard bed?
So this is actually going to be an F-250 utility truck, so it's going to actually have
The box.
If you've seen our bucket truck,
Yeah.
it's going to have that box, but also a roof rack, so then
Okay.
I can put poles on top of the roof and ladders.
Okay.
There is a
If you have
picture
the
of
staff
it.
report, there's a.
Yep.
picture.
That's an example of what it is going to look like. so.
Okay, gotcha. Second question, is this a new vehicle or is it a certified pre-owned?
New.
New, okay. Do we ever, I guess that leads to a third question, do we ever look into certified pre-owns from dealership, from
Yeah,
dealerships?
anytime, first thing we do is see if we can find something that will work, is certified pre-owned.
Okay.
We have not. So the other thing is, we also look for state contracts, so we don't have to go out and get 3 bids.
Of course.
That's really challenging. So,
Of course. Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor Davis?
Are you ready for a motion?
I don't see the mayor's hand up, so yes.
Oh, he's got to have one question.
Mayor, do you have a question? No? Okay.
Nope. Okay, I'll accept the
does he
motion.
want to vote, though? Is he good?
Probably.
He can throw his hand up again.
I move to approve ordinance number 1653, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to purchase 1 utility truck for Canby area transit from Landmark Ford to the second reading on August 6th, 2025, and declare an emergency.
Second.
It's been moved by Counselor Davis and seconded by Counselor Maldonado to approve ordinance number 1653, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to purchase 1 utility truck for Canby area transit from Landmark Ford to a second reading on August 6, 2025, and declaring emergency. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you,
Thank
Council.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Finally, we have resolution number 1441. Randy?
Council President, members of council, I think Jamie is on her way up. She's going to present this agenda item.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jamie Stickle, Economic Development Director. Tonight before you, we have Resolution 1441, which is a resolution to consider adoption of the Canby Downtown Parking Management Strategy Update and Implementation Guide. Say that 3 times quickly. This is part of the council's goals, which is to update the downtown parking plan. We contracted with Rick Williams Consulting, who's here this evening and will provide a presentation. And just as background, Rick Williams Consulting does parking management and transportation management consulting work based out of the Portland area. And actually, they did the 2012 downtown parking plan. So one of the things that we did to kind of set the tone and help to keep the costs down was to revisit that plan. There was data collection in 2 different ways, so coming in and actually counting all of the spaces, both on-street and off-street, as well as data collection on a typical weekday and a typical weekend. And so we picked a Thursday because that's busier. Most of the businesses in the downtown district are open. And a typical weekend day, we picked a Saturday, and we actually chose when the Saturday market went on, because that's not an event that happens just once a year. It actually happens for about 6 months out of the year. And obviously that would put parking constraints because you're taking up parking as well as street, the street closure. So once we did that, we held an open house on June 10th and provided a brief presentation, much like you're going to see this evening, and then got input from the businesses that participated. And you know, one of the businesses, I was thinking about this today, asked, well, is this a plan to plan? And you'll find that a lot of the information that is in the strategy and implementation guide, as well as in the presentation, it lays out the groundwork for what the city should do to be able to deal with the parking constraints. So it is essentially a plan to plan. But really, I think that with it being a priority from City Council, it seems that it's a priority from our downtown business community. I think there are great recommendations on how to effectively manage parking in Canby, that it's not a plan to plan, but it's really a plan for action. And I'm excited to present that to you this evening. So I'll invite Rick Williams up.
Mayor and councilors, it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the great introduction. It's nice to come back 13 years later and see the changes that have happened in Canby. It's been phenomenal. So what I want to do today is really give you more of a background on what we found from a data point of view, what's working, I mean, how your system works. And hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the plans and then respond to your reactions to the action strategies. One of the things we did in the action strategies that I thought was really important this time, because of that June 10th public open house, we had over 20 people there, and It was just evident that people love your downtown, and they also know a lot about parking. So each of the strategies has a section that really describes why we believe that strategy addresses some of the key themes that were brought up in that meeting. So with that, I'll begin. So the format is, I've kind of introduced the project. I want to talk about the purpose, and also have a brief slide on why do downtowns, medium, small, Main Street cities manage parking? I mean, why is it important? Show you the 2025 data findings so you have a real understanding of what's on the ground and how it works. Then I want to really summarize for you what we heard in that public open house and what we heard over the course of doing this study. And then what does that data tell us? We know what the community said they wanted to accomplish with parking. What does an expert say you should be doing to accomplish parking management? And then just go into the key actions and really hear your reactions and answer questions that you have about that action plan. And I really like the fact of what Jamie said is that oftentimes we too often use the word parking plan. And we've really tried to make this a parking management action plan. Make it a verb, not a noun. So we'll go from there. So the project purpose, as Jamie indicated, is to refresh the 2012 inventory. And so we had to go and relocate every on-street parking stall in your downtown, and we'll show you a study area map. The location of that stall on the specific block face in every off-street facility, whether it was public or private, that's located within your parking boundary, so that we know where everything is. And we went out and actually measured it. We counted cars 10 hours a day for those 2 days, and by on-street, by off-street, by weekday, by weekend. And we saw some really interesting patterns emerge. Public input, we described to just get the understanding of what the community feels about parking and what they'd like to accomplish, how the analysis played out, and how we can give you a plan that, as we said, gets the right car to the right stall. We're not denying anybody parking or access. What we want to do is get them in the right place so that they're not in conflict with, users are not in conflict with each other's, and the end result is high vitality and economic benefit to the downtown. And we put that all into a plan and gave you the elements. Really quickly, why do we manage parking? This is kind of a cliche, but on-street parking is the only parking that you can't grow. Typically, once you build it, once you stripe it, once you put in your loading zones, your curb cuts, your intersections, your bulb outs, you're pretty much locked in. And so everybody wants to park in the on-street supply, but it's the only parking you can't grow. Once you exceed the capacity of your on-street system, you're forced to go off-street or into alternative modes, into low car or no car living. And so it's really important that we manage the on-street parking. Plus, it's very, very important to business. Customers appreciate parking management, believe it or not, rules and regulations. You think, I don't really like that. But customers appreciate knowing how to use your downtown. If they come into a downtown and it's confusing, angst goes up. And again, another cliche, the first impression that people have of your downtown is they arrive in your downtown, that's the first thing they see is their first experience. It's their last experience going out. Another reason to manage parking. As you know, off-street parking is really expensive. In a city like Canby, $50,000 to $65,000 a stall for a structured parking stall. So that's why we want to manage what we have really well. Another reason to manage parking. Because again, that on-street parking, it's finite once we exceed that and we have growth and we start taking out surface parking lots to build what we want, it's just going to become more and more expensive. So manage parking to be efficient and cost effective. We need to support other access options. In the future, and what's so neat about coming back down to Canby after all these years is transit, biking, and walking and living downtown are now on the table. So how does parking support growing your transit system, encouraging living downtown, and at the same time, giving ground level businesses what they want, which is high turnover, more cars. The study area, as you can see, is quite large. And within your report, it might be better. But on the left, the little dots on the map are actually individual parking stalls. Those golden dots are unregulated parking. You can park there all day. It doesn't matter who you are. There's no rule that you can or cannot park there or any limitation how long you can park there. The red dots are 2-hour stalls. And about 44% of your parking on street in the downtown is 2-hour, which is usually visitor prioritized. But 49% of your parking on street downtown is actually no limit. So to a certain degree, your current format of on-street parking favors the long-term user. What we want to do is, you'll see, we want to remix that a bit. On the right, you can see where those colored boxes are parcels that are actually off-street parking. And we assigned a number to each of those parcels. So for us, that when you go to your report at the back, your report, you'll see a table. It tells you where that parking lot is. Try to find out what its main purpose is and whether it's owned privately or owned by the city. 89% of all your off-street parking is in private ownership or control. The city only owns 4 city lots, off-street lots, that have public access, and they only represent 95 parking stalls. So again, that's not atypical, but that's very common. But as you know, then one of the questions on the table, can we capture some of that through partnerships? Whoops, I'm sorry. The color bands in this graphic represent the level of constraint. So in the green band, the industry would say your parking demand is low. In the yellow band, your parking demand is moderate. The orange band, where it's like between 70 and 84%, that's the sweet spot. That means you're robust, but you still have a little room. If you get into the red band, customers are going to have difficulty finding parking. So you can see overall in that larger area that was about 653 parking stalls on street. This is for the on-street parking. There's not a lot of difference between the weekday and the weekend because it's a large area. So we need to hone down on that, which we will. But so if you were to look at this right now, you'd say, okay, our parking demand is moderate and it doesn't change much between weekday and weekend. But we need to dive further into the data. So this is the typical weekday on street. And you can see there's a lot of green on street. But right there along Ivy, it's really congested. That's where everybody wants to be. In fact, there's a total of 11 block faces on a weekday that are red. It means they're highly sought after and they're well used. This is at the peak hour, but also throughout the day. And we have all those heat maps for you if you want them. But all of those block faces, the majority of them, 17% of your parkable supply is on that Ivy corridor. Interestingly, there's a high percentage of no-limit parking stalls on Ivy.
You mean Holly.
I'm sorry, Holly. Thank you.
I just
Thank
was
you,
about to
Counselor.
say the same thing.
I have Ivy stuck in my head because that's where I turned off the Ivy to come here. Thank you. Yes, on Holly. But I think, and we'll get it to another slide, about 38% of the stalls on that really sought-after corridor is no-limit parking. And when we come in the morning to do our parking study and observe cars and count cars, early in the morning, those are the stalls that are full, which suggests that they're employees or residents who live downtown. But here's Saturday. And so remember the 59%, 60% in the graphic for the whole system? Look at the graphic here. So the peak occupancy for the whole area is 60%, but 18 block faces are all clustered. They expanded off of Holly and went east and west. And 30% of your entire parkable supply in the downtown is constrained. It's not 60% or 59%, it's approaching 84%. And you'll see another slide that shows that. And again, the mix of parking still has a lot of no-limit parking in there. What you're having is there's likely a sense of frustration, going back to that when I told you about the colors of the band. When you get into the red band, people become frustrated. And when we listen to the public testimony, that's not what they want. They don't want frustrated customers. They want to get, again, that's where we came up with, get the right car to the right stall. And you can see we have a lot of opportunity with the green around us. So again, if you look at the larger downtown, parking is low to moderate. If you look at these specific corridors or clusters, depending on the day, parking is constrained. Councilor Davis, did you have? Okay. At this time of day, in your entire downtown, there's 261 empty on-street parking stalls. So the question is not putting people in conflict with each other. Let's use the supply that we have and expand our downtown and use the parking we have in a different way. So here's the off-street parking. And what's interesting, because I went back and looked at 2012. So again, this is all 31 parking sites. There's 31 off-street parking sites in downtown, 863 stalls. So more off-street parking than you actually have on-street parking. And you're in the green band in a big way. And that hasn't changed much since 2012. Your on-street system has really done much better. And you've got new buildings downtown, you've got beautiful streets. But the off-street system, again, the challenge here is going to be who owns it. But as you can see, 44% occupancy on weekdays, which is typical in an off-street system because there's more employees downtown, that's the assumption, and a high of 31%, 30 or 31% occupancy on the Saturday in the off-street system. Now, using the heat colors, you can see that here's the weekday off-street system. It's literally unused. There are 483 empty off-street parking stalls in the peak hour on a weekday. And that's where we want employees to park. You know, we want visitors who have a longer-term stay need to park off-street. But again, our challenge is going to be, when we get into the strategies, is creating partnerships, because we can't mandate the private sector to do things with the lots. We want to try to get them to buy into the culture and the goal and the vision of downtown, which is a customer-friendly, efficient, accessible downtown. Saturday is just a repeat. Again, off-street parking on Saturdays is usually less used. It's typical across all downtowns. But as you can see, there's 604 empty parking stalls in the downtown off-street on a Saturday. Now, picture that circle, that Saturday circle of on-street parking. And I'll show you another slide here in a second. That surrounds all that empty parking. So again, an opportunity. So nearly all off-street parking, though, is in private control and ownership. So what we did is we asked our computer system, who is actually a data analyst, to tell us where downtown is. Where is the highest level of activity? Where is it that most customers park? And we drew this purple box. So we shrunk downtown to what we now call a core zone. So you have the core zone, and then you have the greater downtown. In the core zone, there's about 365 parking stalls. And As you know, we already showed you the colors. The colors here again are what are the type of stalls that are currently in that high volume, high demand zone. And 38% of them are no limit parking. And so what we're doing is that we're filling stalls and creating conflicts, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but we're creating conflicts in this core zone. And this is what we want to take control of. This is what we need to manage, is the core zone, and then use that greater downtown area to accommodate other users, like long-term users, people who want to stay longer. The core zone's peak occupancy is 84% on a Saturday and 82% on a weekday. Is that correct? No, yeah. It's 74% on a weekday, I'm sorry, and it's 84% on a Saturday. So it is right at that point of being what we would call fully maximized. And so again, we started at the high level with just the bar graphs, and if you keep shrinking it down, you can find that you do have a bit of a parking problem in your downtown. And it's really more of a problem of format than it is of supply. This is, again, the core zone on the weekday. Now we overlaid the red on-street blocks, which are the straight lines, which are constrained. But we're showing you that there's 111 empty off-street stalls in that core zone. And so there is some opportunity there. Total empty stalls, when you take the on-street and the off-street, there's about 210 empty stalls. So you have moderate parking demand on a weekday, but you have very low demand in the off-street system. Saturday, again, the on-street occupancies, you've seen these red lines now a couple of times. You're at 84% occupancy. There's only 58 empty on-street stalls. 38% of them are no limit and are being occupied by very long-term parkers. But you have 136 empty off-street stalls. And so again, the opportunity is just overlay the problem onto the opportunity, and things, I hope, begin to pop out. So now let's go to the open house. We showed this data to the public, and they broke down some very simple statements. One, parking is very important, and they're very interested in it. Collaboration. We need a plan that we can collaborate between the city and the downtown community, and that they're involved in assisting in its implementation. Simplify. You've got some signs out there that may not even be enforceable. They just say 2-hour parking. Doesn't say what day, doesn't say the time. Some of them give a day and a time, others don't. So we heard from the community, there's a lot of communication in the way the signage and the wayfinding system are directing people through downtown. It's not clear. I call it the 5-second rule. A customer sees a sign, they'll only give you 5 seconds to read it. And so we need to be consistent, we need to be attractive, and we need to communicate the rules of use in about 5 seconds. And so your signage system needs some work. Employee parking, there's a definite need for employee parking. I think the community is saying we need to do a better job of finding that parking for them and directing them there. Clarity, there's a real fear that new development is going to build less parking, which we want, because we want that compact, low car, no car environment integrated into future transit systems. But the way we formatted our system, there's a worry that new developers are coming in and saying, well, we can just use all this on-street parking, it's not regulated. So that they may not be sizing their demand to the purpose intent of the zero minimums or low minimums, compact, low car, no car, integrated into transit. So there's a real fear of that. So we need to create clarity. And we need to enforce the system. If the community were to tell you what's number one on the list, enforcement would go to the top. But we put it here because there's some things that need to be done so that they can enforce. But we hear the message loud and clear, enforcement is key to this. Communicate, and I think at the end of the day, they're saying commit. Commit to a plan and implement it. And so the next slide. Key findings, overall parking demand is low. If you look at it in the macro level, messaging is inconsistent and confusing. There needs to be priorities that everybody understands. Where do customers park? Where do employees and residents park? We need to establish a core district and manage it. I think it'll simplify things like enforcement because it's a smaller area, because we're going to give more freedom outside of that core zone. Balance the parking system to always favor visitor parking, particularly in times of constraint. Enforce it, and then pursue this opportunity to have a peer-to-peer with the city in the room discussion between downtown businesses and owners of private parking. Can we maximize and capture and leverage what we know is empty parking? So with that, I just wanted to, hope that didn't take too long, is to just get into the plan and see what questions you might have. Are there any strategies that you favor, any strategies that give you pause, any strategies that I can elaborate on? I will tell you that the plan is written, we show 3 strategies that are carried over from 2012, but the other 10 strategies are all new that have reacted to the data we have and to the input that the community gave us. So with that, I would take any questions or.
Any questions from the council first? Mayor? Okay, it looks like we do have a citizen question. If you want to come to the front, please.
Sure. Hello. Oh, here, you want to take my seat?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, good evening.
Hi.
My name is Erin Walker. I'm not a resident of Canby, but my husband and I have businesses here in town. And we do occupy, our businesses do face First Avenue. And so we have been on First Avenue since June 1st of 2012, when First Avenue was ripped out to the face of our building. And the beautification project was taking place. We participated in conversations regarding parking at that time because, as many of you recall, parking prior to the revamping of First Avenue was a pull-in style parking on both sides of the street. So there was a lot of parking opportunity just facing the businesses, and that was going away. And instead, now we have the parallel parking along the side of the street with additional parking across the street. That used to be just the rail system. It was our understanding at that time, when the signs were put up for the 2-hour parking, we had a lot of concerns because we have employees. One of our businesses is a clinic, and sometimes patient appointments run long, so we were concerned that people would be ticketed or fined for staying longer than 2 hours. We were told that the reason there was the 2-hour parking implemented was because there were 2 business people that were not happy with each other, and one business owner parked his big rig in front of the other business's business and left it there all day so that customers had a hard time parking. So this was sort of the city's response to that, turf war, if you will. So seeing this kind of move forward does spring some of those concerns regarding having room for employees to park, making sure that the time limits and how it's enforced is respectful of the different styles of businesses that are downtown. I do think that has been plenty of parking and plenty of parking opportunity for people as it stands right now, and have some concerns about forcing enforcement, if you will, or finding people for the time limits on the parking spaces. One other question that I had was, why are we readdressing, like, what spurred this to come about again? I'm not quite sure. Wasn't here wasn't aware of the June 10th meeting, so I'm not quite sure why we're ending up here now, if something happened or what spurred this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
Thank
thank
you,
you very
Erin.
much. Yep, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the reason for readdressing the downtown parking is that the city has received feedback from businesses who are finding that people are parking in front of their business all day long and without enforcement or without communication of changes. There's no, there's the carrot and the stick, and we've worked really hard over the years. We've passed out, if your employee isn't walking, then your customer is, essentially saying, if your employee is parking right in front of your business or the next door neighbor's business, then that means that your customer is walking further. We did pass out flyers, so I apologize. We went to all of the businesses and passed out flyers in downtown about the open house, but I'm glad that Erin is here today. And I think that one of the things, and you might get into this point, but I just want to make sure that I'm saying it up front, that the adoption of this plan does not mean that tomorrow we start enforcing. It means that tomorrow we start to prioritize these steps. One of the things that I like the most about this, and I'm not someone who likes to meet just to meet, but having a downtown parking work group so that we can hear concerns like Erin has brought and concerns like some of the people or many of the people who were at that open house who were saying, there's no parking in front of my business and it's really affecting my ability to do business because people might continue on. So, the fact that there's a parking work group, another piece that you're probably going to go into, but especially with the ability to prioritize the core in the downtown parking, as that is where the biggest constraints are. That then allows for longer term parking for employees kind of I think we called it in the wings in some of our discussions. So that way we're not just saying we're going to prioritize downtown parking for people and only those people who have 2-hour parking, but also acknowledge that there are places that would be longer. For instance, it could be that parking lots such as this one are longer term. So if somebody needed to have an 8-hour business meeting downtown, they would have places to park, and having that customer first focus goes with a lot of communication. Part of the communication, I'm sure we passed out flyers before, but part of that communication starts tonight with the acknowledgement that we're going to take steps to start addressing downtown parking, and hearing from our business community continuously so that we can make sure that it's something that works for our downtown businesses, not just for one or two, or, doesn't continue to just say, we hope that people follow whatever signs they see.
Did I miss it? I don't see the proposed change of hours, like what spots you want to change to 2-hour versus, is there like a 10-hour option, or is it?
Yeah, in the graphic, and I apologize, that area we call the core zone now would be all 2 hours.
Including the railroad parking lot?
No, the on-street.
Okay, because it looks like,
The
okay, yeah.
railroad-
Oh, I got to zoom in, I
Oh,
see,
can- oh,
okay.
let me- I'm sorry.
So the
Got
the
that.
UP parking lot, that could be longer parking for the employees?
Yeah, what we're.
I had to zoom in to see that. My glasses aren't that great.
Tracy needs a new
I
prescription.
need to do glasses. Okay, I see it, okay.
Yeah, so I hope we answered your question.
Yeah, it did, thank you.
Now,
I think it'd be best long
the
term.
boundary of the core zone, we would want to have formal approval on a recommendation of staff and that parking work group. So part of the implementation is establish the core zone, but to allow one more opportunity to look at the data and say, this is the zone, this is where we want to take control. But the long answer to your question is the on-street would be all 2 hours.
Okay, but would that be an opportunity for employees or a long meeting or a long appointment could walk across the street to the railroad parking lot?
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm
as
good.
we called the wings to the east and west, that would be primary. Some of the 2-hour parking that's already in there we may want to stay, and that's a conversation with those businesses. But as you saw, there's a lot of green out there. So the wings would become primarily no-limit parking or 10-hour parking. Again, we're not reducing the amount of parking, we're simply shifting the amount of parking.
And one of the concepts that was recommended, I think from a business owner, was even maybe there's a way to have, if someone's going to come downtown and they're going to have a longer meeting or something, and it's not an ongoing thing, but, I'm coming down to meet with my real estate person or my tax person, and I'm going to meet for 5 hours, that maybe there's a sign that says, given by the business that says this stall is being used for 5 hours or something like that, that there might be ways that we can work with the businesses and continuously develop how we approach this.
Like they go in, they get a parking pass to put on their dash? That doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Or, I think Rick had even said that in some cities they do permits for business owners. And so there would be permitted areas or something like that where a business owner could, or not business owner, but business people, employees could park. So there are ways to address it. And the hope is that what we can do is really start to focus on this downtown core and, see how it works. And if it's not working, then
tweak it
as we go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, and thanks for the report.
Oh, thank you.
Good report. What about residential parking? People parking in the off-street parking or on-street parking that live in apartments.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
currently, some of the residential units have parking of their own. And we weren't able to, but it may not be enough. And so that goes back to, I'm going to jump ahead a little. One of the recommendations is to have that conversation with developers when they come in and say, we want you to build less parking. Because we want to create this vision of compact urban development, low and no car living, and connections to future transit options. And so we need them to know that the city, as demand goes up, will begin to manage their streets. And so what now may be parking in front of a residential building, you're a ways from it. But there are cities now who enforce until 10 o'clock at night. They enforce 7 days a week. And so we just want developers to be aware of that. Now, with the off-street supply, particularly some of the city-owned off-street lots, is to think about whether those become permit lots. So you could sell permits to residents or employees. Or employees, of course, can be parking in off-street lots, but also we have these wings. I know the challenge for residential is technically, a lot of cities, what it happens is a low car garage serving a residential unit. So if your time limit is until 5 p.m., well, they'll park there at 3. And then they'll park there until the next morning, and then they have to move their car. Because if they're obeying the rules, it's kind of a shuffling game. So it's a tough question. It's are the developers buying into your vision, or are they just building less parking because they're relying on you to meet their demand? And that's a discussion with them. And you'll see in AP4, there's like 3 kind of approaches to take. But it really is, as some of the folks in the June 10th meeting said, that's really the city can open the door, but it's a peer-to-peer discussion. Businesses need to talk to developers, and businesses need to talk to residential managers. Leasing agents need to talk to their tenants and know that the on-street supply, when we get into a constrained situation like this, will always err to the visitor. If we have supply, we can make it available, but we can't guarantee it. You shouldn't be putting your long-term chips down on the table saying, we're always just going to park our people on street. So there's not a perfect answer, but there's opportunity.
And I was going to say, one of the strengths to the downtown apartments that we have, meaning the Dahlia building, is that while there was not a requirement to include parking, Hanlon Development included parking because to recognize that, especially as Canby continued to grow and you're bringing in retail, that there is parking. I do believe that it's paid parking. And so, you know, in my mind, would I pay for parking if I knew I wasn't going to get ticketed on the street? Probably not. But if I knew that I wasn't going to get a ticket for parking longer than I was supposed to, I'd pay for parking for that assurance. And you know, I lived in Seattle and I did the dance of wake up and move your car and make sure that you're paying attention to it or get a ticket. But I think that speaks to the relationship between the developer and the city. And I know our previous city administrator, Rick Robinson, worked very hard to make sure that we were being thoughtful about, as Canby grows, and specifically parking, what does that look like? And so I think that development was very thoughtful, and it's something that we can point to as city staff to say, here's a way that they did more than they needed, and it's working to help reduce some of that on-street.
Councilor Stearns.
Just a couple of comments. I, too, have had a business in that area since 2011, and I went to the meeting, and it was very informative. In fact, when I saw the maps, basically I knew where to park because I knew there would always be a parking spot, and it's worked for me since I've never had to look for a spot. However, in my kind of business, I have more employees than I have customers, but sometimes the customers have to be there for a long time. And it is a very big problem in certain areas on Grant and 2nd Street, which is where our building's located. There really is no on-street parking from about 10 a.m. to now, and we do this in our office. If somebody who's disabled needs to come to our office, we have to schedule them about 3 o'clock in the afternoon to account for the ebb and flow of what takes up all the parking, which is the backstop. I'm not trying to criticize them, but that's just the way it is, the backstop during their time. And I have to schedule them for that time in order for them to come see us. Otherwise, they can't, if they're not the type of person that can walk 2 or 3 blocks. And so that's kind of where I just see that issue there, but to respond to you, it can be highly localized, and it can be, in my observation, depending on the exact time of day that you're talking about. Like noon, no parking there at all. There's none. You have to get there before or afterwards. So like we cannot schedule people that can't walk during that noon to about probably 11:30 to 2:30. And so we've just adapted that way. But I think enforcement could help some of that. But again, maybe some exceptions for longer term parking that a business owner can give someone and say, here's your get out jail free card from the parking police. And that would be registered. You would monitor if I'm abusing that or not. The other thing is, if we're going to start enforcing, we don't have enforcement, that people give ample notice ahead of time. So it's not that one day they go where they parked for the last 5 years, no problem, they get a big bill that next
There should be
day.
warnings first.
Absolutely. I think that I think that, and I think we've discussed this, but that the communication ahead of time, obviously with the businesses, with employees, but also, you know, then my thought is that then we do, you know, it looks like a ticket, and you say, you didn't get a ticket today, but downtown parking is changing. And so these are the steps, and as a way to help communicate and educate the community on the changes, so that maybe the first time you get something under your windshield, it's not actually a ticket, it's a warning that says, we're making some changes, but that the communication goes ahead of that as well.
The other thing I was going to say is because Council President Hensley had mentioned 10-hour parking. And in some of those cases, some cities will actually have 3 hours or by permit. So it addresses the short-term need for that longer-term, short-term visit. 2 hours is recommended here because it's right now the easiest thing to enforce. We're not recommending meters, but when you have 2-hour free parking, your time limit doesn't begin until the officer, quote unquote, chalks your tire. So you can park there an hour before you're being enforced. And so sometimes having 2-hour parking in your core zone, a ring of 3-hour or by permit parking, then you could possibly get employees closer to your business. And also under, because you mentioned something very important about people with, that are disabled. PM6, we talk about, you've got a lot of, I think 26 ADA stalls on street, but are they in the right place?
No.
And so I think, thank you.
Now that I have to use them, I know.
So, you know, again, it's not saying maybe we don't need to increase the supply of ADA parking we have, just like we're saying we're just taking this supply and sort of reorienting it. But you've got a lot of opportunity. You might need 2 ADA stalls in front of your business, and we would not reduce the number of ADA stalls, and we'd probably get more use out of them when they're placed in front of businesses that really need them. So that's in here as well. But there is a lot of flexible options. You could go to permits. Right now, we didn't go to the 10 hours simply because it's so underutilized. But over time.
I didn't know about the permit option. See,
Yeah,
I learned
but
something.
over time, you could move to a permit program and time limit some of the wings, but allow someone to violate the time stay with a permit. So, options.
And, you know, is there another option of possibly having businesses permit out for certain spots in front of their businesses for ease of accessibility?
I would flip that to your city attorney. I don't think you can provide a single-use benefit in the public right-of-way.
Okay.
That's my, I think, Councilor Maldonado.
Okay.
And I was going to say, to put my Main Street hat on, one of the things that is important with downtowns is you come and you're going to go to the eye doctor and get your yearly checkup.
Yeah.
And let's say you can't park right in front of that business. You park in front of a business across the street, which happens to be Bee's Bake Shop, or down the street, which happens to be Willamette Coffee House, and you walk past them and you go, man, looks great in there, it's hopping. I'm gonna go in, grab a coffee, run into some friends. That's that kind of downtown experience.
Yeah.
And so I worry that in doing so with the on-street parking, in addition to whatever, you know, legal requirements or influence that would be, that might actually interfere, because people would go, I went, I parked, I went right there, right into my business, got back in my car and boogied. And we want people walking, because that's how you learn that there's great opportunities, great, you know, shopping and dining and retail downtown.
Just to follow on that, I've never seen a city that actually gives a permit that allows you to park on street in front of in a specific spot, kind of like quote unquote a reserve stall. You know, we have seen cities that designate areas on street, again, back in those wings, that prioritize permits. Vancouver, Washington does it, Milwaukee, Oregon does it. Tigard's moving to.
I know, like Oregon City does the orange zones, blue zones, things of that nature, where you have to purchase a permit from the city, and you're only allowed to park in those spots, or on those curbs for X amount of time.
Right. The only caveat in all of those cities that I mentioned is that they are generally sold as what is called an interim general access pass. And the key term is interim, because if the visitor demand starts to creep into those areas, then they are slowly attritioned out. So it's not necessarily, but most of them have been in place for long terms. But I think Vancouver's number, they originally began, they're bigger downtown, obviously, but they had like 400 on-street permits kind of in their wings. And now they're down to 200. Because as you see, Vancouver's visitor now traffic is growing. But there are solutions. It's through a permit program where you can locate areas where employees know I can park there.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the dais? Okay, we have a follow-up question from Erin.
Thank you again. First question is, I would feel it would be regrettable to charge a permit to my employees to park downtown. I think like that's taxing my employees to work. So I feel like that's kind of odd. That doesn't sit real well with me. The other kind of broader question I have is about the kind of push to like public transit and no cars. Back to your earlier comments about how, you know, maybe you're driving in to go to the eye doctor and you park across from, you know, Gwen's Willamette Coffee House. I think having adequate parking to serve, like, we're very much agriculture community. We're very much, there's a lot of industry here, and we want to support that as local downtown businesses. I think dedicating enough space to parking should be a priority versus, oh, we're just going to build downtown up, have a bunch of apartments, and not pay attention to parking. So I do think that you alienate and kind of rot out your downtown area by doing that. And so I would speak a word of caution to that. I do understand that other cities are doing that, but I don't know that it's the healthiest move for the city per se, other than, you know, especially looking at, you know, where the support for businesses comes from in Canby. I think it's worthwhile to invest in them traveling downtown, and part of that investment is making sure that there's parking. The third comment is that, you know, looking back at those maps, I did not realize that that space over by the Dahlia building was public parking. I thought that was just for Dahlia residents. Like, just having some signs up saying that
Under the Dahlia building is Dahlia only.
right, but that space over there by Noni's Village, like, I had no idea that was public parking.
It's known as.
Oh,
The thought is, I just.
Sorry.
To the microphone.
Maybe I'll get that map up for you.
Sorry, we'll just get cozy.
yeah, like number 29 right there, and 21.
Yeah, let me get to the inventory so you can see that.
And so just to address that
So see the
comment,
little dots,
It-
that's on-street parking.
and some of the off-street parking that was reviewed, that's privately owned parking, so like the Dahlia. So for instance, and we
Okay.
actually had an instance with one of our businesses that was already doing what we call a peer-to-peer parking, where they are renting parking space from a parking lot so that their employees can park there. So it would be something like that, maybe potentially. Or I met with the chamber director yesterday, and we were talking about, in other cities, they sometimes reach out to faith-based organizations because they don't use the parking. I appreciate your comments and concerns, and I just want to make sure that I say this for the record, that this is not implementing all of these pieces.
Right.
It's just saying these are the best steps for parking management, and then the city would go to work on determining exactly how that's implemented.
Right.
I just want to make sure that I'm saying it so that there's no confusion that things might be put into place just because they're in this plan. This is a plan for action and for discussion and for hearing from businesses like yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'll take a motion. Councilor Davis.
Before I make the motion, I do support the recommendation moving forward, but I also like your plan moving forward because it's continuous. In other words, establishing that work group and the downtown work group. So when the input for people that might have missed some of this, or some new people coming in can have input to the process. And so I like that step, that it is continuous. So I move to adopt resolution number 1441, a resolution adopting the City of Canby Downtown Parking Management Strategy Update and Implementation Guide.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to adopt Resolution 1441, a resolution adopting the City of Canby Downtown Parking Management Strategy Update and Implementation Guide. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is old business. Last meeting, or maybe a meeting ago, K-Hoot came in, Canby Disposal, they came in and proposed a program called Pink Sisters, or Pink Sisters was with them, to propose pink carts. And our city attorney, Emily Guymont, has an update for us.
I do. So meeting, I believe it was not last meeting, but the meeting before that, direction from council was to review the franchise agreement to see how the donation program, which was Canby Disposal collects $50 from customers, they get a pink waste disposal bin, and that $50 passes straight through to Pink Sis does, how that would work or not work with the current terms of the current franchise agreement. Particularly concerning was whether that $50 would be assessed the franchise fee, which it sounds like council wouldn't really want to do, since the point is to get that $50 all the way to the nonprofit, and whether there were any requirements in the franchise agreement about like size, dimension, color for bins. So for the second issue, yes, the franchise agreement does say bins can only be of certain colors and in certain dimensions. For the first question, it's a little bit iffier. So the franchise agreement says that that franchise fee applies to gross revenues, and it doesn't state clearly whether a donation, so something that would not be going into the pocket of the franchisee, but instead we passed along, counts as gross revenues. I talked to your finance director, Scott, a little bit just to see what he thinks from a CPA perspective. And essentially what he said is it may depend on how Canby Disposal does its own internal accounting. So rather than chase that further, my thought is if council wants me to, I can put together a resolution that would have the effect of allowing this donation program to go forward and resolve any conflicts with the franchise agreement just for the terms of that donation program. So I haven't done the language yet. I'm looking for guidance from council whether you want me to go down that path. And if you want me to, I can bring that to the next council meeting.
Councilman Maldonado.
So in the agreement, it does state that we have to use a specific color.
It does. I think, I can't remember what the specific color was, but my recollection is that it is drab. Like those go away greens or those tans
Does
and
it
khakis.
state whether or not we can have, say they wanted to design an emblem of some sort that could be attached to?
Yes, you can allow that at your discretion. That's what the city can allow that at the city's discretion. That's what the franchise agreement says. But I would recommend making sure it's put in clear writing under clear terms so there's no confusion about what you're allowing and how long you're allowing it for.
Because my thought process is if we can't obviously use their pink bins, and they're trying to do something that symbolizes the $50 donation, then an emblem or an add-on to a bin would probably be the best option.
You can do the pink bin. I would write
So we
you
can do the
language.
pink bin.
Yeah, but we need to put it in
tweak it.
writing so
Okay.
that it's clear that what we're permitting isn't a violation of the franchise agreement and that the city is allowing it to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and an
That's-
emblem
that's what-
wouldn't
sorry.
last with the arms very long, taking the cans.
Yeah.
Any questions on this end? Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions, comments, concerns, pontifications? Okay. Thank you, Emily. Oh, maybe we should have a consensus. Do we want her to draft some language?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Cool, will do. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. New business. I don't have anything on the agenda. Did anything come up, Randy? Do we have any new business?
Not on new business.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's business. Mr. Mayor.
The only thing I have to touch on right now is just a big thank you to Tyler and Jamie and all of the city staff for a great Independence Day celebration. That was the longest amount of entries I think we've had for the parade. I think it was also probably the most people I've seen in downtown along the parade route. So kudos to them for a great event. That's all I really have at this time. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, likewise, a wonderful event. We say kudos over and over, but I do think this is the first year I've lapped the parade. I got off of my float. I waved to Jose didn't know he was the end of the parade as I was walking away to meet up with Randy, and we watched the rest of the parade go by. And then that's when I realized Jose was the end of the parade, like 10 minutes later. I was like, wow, that was great. That was a lot of fun. And then the first Thursday was the first time with the little kiddo market, and that was the cutest thing. Are they going to do that again, Jamie? The kid?
Their plans to do that, I think, in September.
Awesome. It was so adorable. So catch that next time they're here. Traffic Safety Commission. We met, they're working on stuff. They still haven't got the language completely figured out yet and approved to bring it to us, but they're bringing us a speed reduction proposition for Darcy State, so that'll be coming hopefully soon. C4 didn't meet last week because of the holiday, and also the fact that next week is the working retreat. So there'll be a report later on C4. And finally, I attended the Zoom meeting for French Prairie Forum today, as did Jamie. I was especially wanting to attend this one because Greg Leo did a legislative update on the possible special session coming up for the end of the month, hopefully, well, not hopefully in my opinion, but possibly, regarding the transportation package. The governor was looking for a letter of support from the League of Oregon Cities, but there's no final proposal yet. So, and the draft bill was kind of looking just not as bad. It wasn't as horrible, but it was still kind of bad as HB 2025, and it's still an omnibus bill. So the consensus seems to be that the cities are waiting to see what the proposal is before they want to have LOC draft a letter of support. So we will see how that transpires. There'll be more to come as that develops. And that's all I have. Do you have anything?
No, I would like to also echo the mayor. I can't tell you how good of a job you guys did because words just doesn't describe it. The city lit up. Our visitors absolutely adored what was going on. Every year it just gets bigger and bigger. You guys deserve the big kudos. Nobody really understands how much that takes. So great job.
Yep, our city team rocks. Okay, Councilor Davis.
Thank you. Park and Rec Committee meeting. Thank you to the interim city manager attending last night. It was good to see Randy there at the Park and Rec Committee. Doc Furman did attend the meeting last night and addressed the Park and Rec Committee and handed out packets, which the city council has received those packets as well, and there's going to be a work session scheduled. So he just encouraged the Park and Rec Committee to help endorse whatever. The Park and Rec Committee chose not to do any action on it because they really don't feel that it's in our venue to support that one way or the other as a Park and Rec issue. We did have a robust discussion around the Maple Street Park. This last year, we had budgeted to increase the parking at Maple Street Park, and it was cut out of the budget. So now that we've got the splash pad over there, we've got the pickleball courts, we have some really nice sidewalks out on Maple Street, but it's made the street a little bit thinner. And so we've got a huge parking issue over there. So we discussed alternatives, temporary alternatives on what could be done in regards to increasing parking on that site. One of the recommendations from our public works director was to possibly gravel an area, we'll put a gate up there over by the pickleball courts. And so when there's a big softball tournament, baseball tournament or something like that, possibly in short term, gravel that area. No trees would have to be taken out in order to do that. The old city administrator, Rick Robinson, worked with our public works director on that, on how to increase the parking. The original plan was to move the kiddies playground area and actually engineer some parking over there. The second discussion we had was around the bathrooms. If you've been over to Maple Street Park since we've made that kind of the premier park in the city were minus bathrooms. And so the Park and Rec Committee strongly recommended that we do what we can to increase bathroom facilities over there. This last weekend, there was a huge 18U tournament, softball tournament. And just lines and lines and lines of people trying to use facilities over there. So that's an issue as well, too. So the Park and Rec Committee prioritizing it, prioritized the bathrooms first and the parking is second as far as priority goes. But there is a need for both. Logging Road, again, the Bike and Ped Committee is still talking about, should we stripe the Logging Road Trail? The discussion around it was essentially, let's just make sure that the signs are up, posting, the rules for the bike trail at this point, and then to have further discussions with the Bike and Ped Committee moving forward with the Park and Rec Department. So, Jerry, anything else that you can think of that?
We had one more quick topic, and I got busy today and wasn't able to email the city administrator about it. But Tyler Nizer and Spencer Pollock are working on a grant to dig out the community park pond. Right. How it's shallow and all that. So Parks Advisory thought it was a great idea, and we wanted to run it by you folks and see if you thought it'd be good. It's basically, they would write the grant and we would just have to provide some trucking, and then the state would assist with all of it. So it sounds like a really neat deal. So that was the only other thing I had.
Any objection by council?
To dig out the pond?
Yeah.
Department of Fish and Wildlife, great.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
The question.
Yes, to that point about community park, Jerry, there was also conversation a number of years ago about trying to add some fountains to aerate that pond so that we could stock it with fish and whatnot. Is that no longer a plan for that park?
No, that is, the Parks Chair, Barry Johnson, brings it up almost daily with me. And by doing this, it's got all that parrot feather and stuff that plugs it up. This would get the pond deeper. We could start treating that, whatever's growing in it, and we could have a fountain that was probably a lot less maintenance free. Some sort of aeration.
Well, I understand. That's great. Again, did we not do a series of treatments in Canby Community Park Pond to combat the algae and the stuff growing in there?
We did.
That was the precursor to doing the aeration.
Yes, we have been treating it, and we missed a treat. Well, we're going back to treating it again. It grows back so fast. The pond's so shallow. And it grows down, it grows in that creek above it, and so it just keeps coming into it. And it's one of the topics that we'll bring up with Fish and Wildlife on it. But we did have a fountain in it years ago, and I believe I wasn't really involved in it, but Jeff Snyder was telling me that the critters got in there really bad and destroyed it. So.
And Mayor Hodson, I also wanted to note that this grant came about actually from Oregon Fish and Wildlife, because they do events in Community Park. And so in communicating with, I think the way that it started was they were communicating with Tyler about the fishing events that they do, and started to ask if the city would like to do more events there. And in those conversations, Oregon Fish and Wildlife acknowledged that if the pond was a little bit deeper, that you could stock it with more fish and potentially have more events, or they could even stagger the fish delivery. I'm not exactly sure the language, not quite outdoorsy, but that they could stagger the fish delivery to the pond so that there could be more events. And they really acknowledged that Canby's pond in Community Park is very unique, not just to Canby, but for this area. And they have had other successful grants in other areas, specifically shared John Day, that they thought that would make this make sense and would be able to help push that through the grant process. So that's why maybe that piece about the aeration wasn't originally kind of included. It's because that came about from Oregon Fish and Wildlife saying, if this was deeper and there was better accessibility, we would be able to do more with this park. And so we were trying to take that opportunity, and especially, it's not very often that a state agency reaches out and says, hey, we have money and we think you have something that could be a good project. So it could be that we include something like that in our grant application.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
And I believe the word you were looking for is stalking.
Thank you, stocking the fish, yes.
The fish delivery, I don't know.
So just to finish my report, I too would like to thank the city staff, all the city staff, for their work on 4th of July. It was tremendous. Also like to thank Greg Perez for his work in helping organize the parade as well. Great work by Greg. Also to Jason Patton, who I recruited him to help me with the organization of the parade after Greg had to take off. And Rotary's looking forward to the opportunity of making that a project moving forward on an annual basis.
And you're going to train them all, right?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. I wanted to also mention the great job of putting in the park bench at Wake Park in memory of Jeff Snyder. It is in there now, and if you haven't seen it, they've done a really nice job with that new park bench program. We also had the 3-on-3 tourney this last weekend. A lot of work by a lot of people getting those rims set up and everything else and taken down on Sunday. So just a tremendous amount of work. But again, it's just the Canby way of doing things and having a lot of activities downtown. But that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Stearns, do you have?
Excuse me. Well, I attended the Canby Utility Board meeting, and you can always guess what the topic of conversation was there. But apparently there's still a concern with delivering power for large projects. And we'll assure them that we'll be working together as a city with them in the future. And I think some of that's already in the wings going on. Went last Thursday to the last meeting of the Citizens Academy, and at least for me personally, that was one of the best meetings because it's all hands-on. We went to the Public Works and we got to see all the toys that they have, and that made me kind of jealous. I wanted to go maybe quit my job and play with all the toys, but that they have for the Public Works Department, and we also got to see how the wastewater treatment works, and that's a little bit of a stinky business, but still, it was very interesting, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work that Jamie put into it. I got compliments, I'm sure she has, and I've got them from people who attended that said it was a really great event, and I hope that we do that annually. I think the one thing that we decided was it was a good thing that the last meeting was done in the summer because if it had been done in February, it may not have been as easy to get a tour of everything in the dark. So I just want to say compliments to Jamie for doing that, heading that up, and for Tyler for helping her out. So I just want to just say thank you for that, and that was really appreciate that. I think it was successful. Other things I wanted to just bring up, because I'm going to just be annoying and bring it up every meeting, is the street maintenance fee. That we were. That's what I've been told for the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think you'll see a little report here later on tonight. So
Okay, so that's good. I just want to say it, I'll just, as the annoying little thing to say all the time. For parking, just as one addition to the parking, just one thing that several people brought up to me is First Street and Third Street. There's probably room in there to have angled parking in there, especially because they have the sidewalk is so deep. I mean, with the green space in between, and so people have pointed that out to me, that for something in the future, that you could probably put more parking there if that's needed. And one last thing I just wanted to point out, it kind of brought up the with the police contract that we have. I reviewed that, and although I approved it, it was fine and everything. I noticed there's a lot of, or several things in the contract that were not probably very efficient when it comes to tax code and tax and other payroll strategies, which means basically the short story is it's costing the city money and the employees get less money because of some of the things in there. And I know a lot of it looks like cut and paste from prior years, but I think it might be a good idea sometime just to review the whole compensation strategy, because it's something I just do all the time with people every day. And I look for things and I'm looking at that. I'm like, I don't know that after all the negotiation was done, that somebody actually who is a tax person or a specialist looked in and says, does all of this make sense from both sides' point of view? So I think that's something that probably should be worked on to be the benefit, so that our employees get as much money they can take home as possible, and the city doesn't pay any more than it needs to. And I think that, if you want details or something offline, but it can be very technical. Some of the tax issues just came out and were changed last January by the IRS. And I don't think that was shown, those changes that were beneficial that way. So I just wanted to bring that out publicly, that I think that happy employees make happy cities, and happy employees, at least in my opinion, and my experience, are the ones that have more money, right? And happy city is the one that costs less money. So just wanted to bring that up.
Councilor Waterman.
Councilor Davis already brought up my bike and pit information. They talked about working with Parks and Rec. Have some questions about the bike trail and so forth, and the striping. Also saw that the work has already started, or has started, on the connection of the bike trail, or the logging trail to 99E. They started clearing everything out and getting going, so excited to see that go. Safety and everything else, no more track crossing. And I would like to thank staff and Jamie and everybody. The 4th of July was great, and growing every year. I would also, we're going to get in here in a minute, but I'd also like to thank our interim city administrator. I would say that our staff reports that we have received in this packet are probably the most detailed and comprehensive, and actually seem valuable information, and I really appreciate the staff putting the work into that, and for the organization of that and that coming to us. So that's been, it was really nice to see.
Thank you, Councilor.
And we had the library board meeting. We have a new chair, Amy, apologize, I forget her last name, is the new chair. Lois is co-chairing with her, and helping her out as we move forward. And we had a new member, their first time that we brought in the last meeting. And also, we still have 2 openings on the Bike and Pet Committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waterman. Next on the agenda is the Citizen Administrator Business and Staff Report. Randy.
Thank you, Council President. Council, I know I'll be brief tonight. I know we have executive session, so I did want to recognize your leadership team that's here, your library director, your HR directors out there. So thank you. It's been a long night. Your community development, economic development, public works, good team is here tonight, and recognize them being here with us tonight. First and foremost, wanted to talk about how we started the week. Imagine showing up to work 7:30 in the morning and hearing the phones ringing off the hook with a 12-inch water line break up on 10th and Pine. I did want to highlight the good and then talk about some learnings really quick because it was requested by council that we do talk a little bit about that tonight because you received phone calls as well. First of all, I'd like to shout out to Canby Utility and our Public Works Department. I think there was good on-scene coordination, Jerry, his crew, and Jason Burning with the utility, and in fact, Joe Brennan, the guy I used to work with over in Beaverton who came to Canby. So Canby Utility on scene working with us. They actually had a Vector truck that was sitting idle and decided, hey, you know, if we can get rid of some of this water that's just coming out of the ground. And then we offered to, Jerry offered to go ahead and let him put it down at our Public Works facility, get rid of it down there. So just good collaboration, everybody working together on scene. Good to see that happening. Good learnings after action learning. You always want to do after action, as you know, council and those of you that are in the business. So one of which has been on our list of things to tackle, as I understand it, is our phone tree here at the city. So that 4021 number you call in at the city. So we're tackling that. We've got some people who are real interested in working on that in our leadership team. And we've had some citizens that were trying to call in during that episode. So I'm real optimistic that we can make a lot of good progress there. And I personally called a couple of those folks and talked to them on the phone that were impacted and heard just how they tried to cycle through that, you know, when you call your credit card company or you call anybody really, and you get the spin of, you know, what department would you like to talk to? And so we want to try and get you with a live person, right? So we're working through some of the machinations of that right now. So that's been one of the good learnings. The other is communication of who do I call? So when the water pressure lessened, when they made impact with the line, some basements flooded, some cars, you know, were on the street and saw, you know, when you have over 3 million gallons of water all of a sudden on the street, you're going to see some impact. So who do I call for insurance purposes? Good news is Canby Utility and Canby, the city, have the same insurance company. So we all got together. We have advice for folks that received impact to call immediately, you know, file claims with their own insurance carriers. That's the quickest way, counselors, to get immediate claims filed. And then they will subrogate to the contractor that made the strike. So we're working on getting that messaging out, thanks to Jamie in our social media and our frontline folks that are taking the calls both at Canby Utility and here at the city. So I hope that covers kind of the A to Z of what happened and lessons learned on that Monday morning. And here we are Wednesday. So
Yeah. And thank you for addressing the phone tree thing, because that was something that I specifically saw people complaining about on Canby Now. Gotta love Canby Now.
Yeah.
So thank you for addressing all that. Hopefully
You bet.
they're watching and have their answers now.
Just real quickly, Knights Bridge tomorrow morning, back to closed. Okay, so thanks to the county for calling, letting us know what's going on there. They've got over 50 active projects right now countywide, so they're real busy. One thing that they said they did do was extend Canby ferry hours on our behalf for this. So residents should know they can get on that Canby ferry with extended hours as much as possible. They're looking into doing some fee or I don't want to say assessments, but I don't want to say waivers either, but they're looking at, you know, if there's a way that they can mitigate some of that. Not going to make any over promises, but they said they would look into that because they know that a lot of Canby folks are going to be using that ferry more. They also mentioned that Arlington Airport Road's going to be doing some night paving. They got the contractor to do night paving, so they're really happy about that. Down to one lane, Jerry. Thank your folks will appreciate that. And then just want to give you some highlights on some new fiscal year expenditures that are underway that were just signed off. So you got the 800 radios that, and the 911 contracts are underway. Our leases with the school districts for property are underway already. The boring for the sewer bore for Walnut's underway with DeWitt. I know that's a big project that you wanted to see happen. And then some additional sidewalks that the county's going to approve for South Ivy. That's a very visible project, so even more sidewalks are being done in there. Lastly, I'll just conclude that I know one of your top priorities, along with those bathrooms and parking, is the street maintenance fee. So I've delegated that for a 30 to 60 day work product to Jamie. And Jamie is going to oversee that with Jerry's help down at Public Works with some staff support to bring back to you a recommendation rather quickly. So tonight I asked them to come up and give just a brief update on the scope of that work and where we're gonna, and if you don't mind, if you could do that just within maybe like 60 seconds, because we want to get to executive session, but just tell the council what the scope is and how we're going to address that.
Yes, so we're working together. We've been working since 2021 or 2022 on the street maintenance fee. We have some support staff, a special assignment with our utility billing specialist. So this is going to be her task for the next 30 to 60 days. Obviously, making sure that we have a very good understanding of that fee, how it's applied, understanding the system, because that was one of the things that we heard from the street maintenance task force. Our planning department provided a document that showed all of the development from 2021 till now. So cross-checking that document and making sure that everybody is either paying or paying the correct amount. Our planning manager noted that they believe everybody is paying something, but maybe not the correct amount. Issuing letters and those kinds of things so that we are communicating any changes and you don't go from $5 a month to $500 a month just willy-nilly. And then auditing all of the non-residential users who have either, never been charged correctly, or just hasn't been revisited, to make sure that we are correctly applying that fee. That we can report that back to you. And then lastly, creating a document that reflects the work on how to get it done, so that we don't have, if there's another change, invasion of the body snatchers, that people with institutional knowledge go away, that we don't find ourselves in another situation where 5 years down the road we go, oh, this fee wasn't applied correctly and nobody knew how it was supposed to be done. So working on having a document that makes it easy for whoever else to take that on and run. Is there anything you want to add?
And we've communicated with the chairperson of this committee, so we'll keep them updated.
Awesome.
And I appreciate Councilor Stearns of keeping it top of mind. And I think one of the great things about the street maintenance task force is that they want to see this come forward and get done. And I would say that the team that's working on this, we are producers and we want to see it get corrected, get done, and get in front of you so that you know that it's correctly being applied to our non-residential users.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
And that concludes. Okay, very good. Second opportunity for the citizen input. Any citizens want to input? Anybody online, Teresa? Okay. Action review.
You approved the consent agenda. You adopted ordinance 1650. You approved ordinances 1651, 1652, and 1653 to a second reading on August 6th, 2025. And you also directed the city attorney to draft a resolution to allow pink carts, the pink carts donation program for Cahoot/Canby disposal.
Okay, thank you much. All right, before we adjourn, we need to go into to executive session.
Council President, I move to go into the executive session designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations pursuant to ORS 192.660, para-2, para-D.
Okay, it has been, motion's been made by Councilor Maldonado and seconded by Councilor Davis to go into executive session pursuant to ORS 92.660, parent 2, parent D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by a governing body to carry on labor negotiations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Canby City Council will enter into executive session. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Only representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in the executive session. If a final decision on any matter is necessary, the council will make that decision when it is in a regular session. At the end of the session, there will be no further business. Good night, Canby.